Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto Awakens Ashura Chakra Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for Part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Long ago, in a time forgotten by the people of the world, was an era of enduring rage and unending wars. Mankind had been embroiled with each other in eternal wars, fought over petty reasons or for performing horrific crimes against one another, sometimes trying to better themselves by weakening their enemies so their military might would be greater, only for a greater force to overwhelm them later on. Or for no reason at all than just violence and death. Some even lived to fight on battlefields, take lives and ruin many. Humanity had a curse, a sickening and infectious curse that all beings were infected with, a curse that only a few were able to see, one more powerful than any war. This curse is known as hatred. A powerful force that could drive any person from the innocent bystander to a rage-fueled beast that would hunt down those who wronged them, inflicting more pain and brutality, effectively spreading the curse to others. Hatred was like a chain. It will be linked to more and more people, to those who are directly affected by it, and others who merely beheld witness to its outbursts of rage. The chain would grow and be linked to more chains, connecting more people to the other. No one was ever safe from hatred. Hatred was genetic and would be passed down to others, just as if you gave a child a toy to play with, just as hatred toys with people's lives. But what came after hatred? Well, most would say healing from the pain of their lives and the pain they wrought on others. Only fools would believe that healing would bring about an end to hatred. What came after hatred were either of two things: emptiness, where a person would lose everything that was dear to them or will ever be dear to them, possibly even losing one's own self, their identities and the qualities that made them special. Emptiness was like a snuffed flame, with nothing to fuel it. Or even more, hatred, where the anger would blind those to the truth and accept that the world itself was responsible for what happened to them. Both paths were equally as punishing as the other. Among the humans and their inherited hatred was a tree of massive scale and equally massive power, a tree that was worshipped as a god and feared as a titan. This tree had a consciousness of its own, but very few would know the full extent of its intellect. This tree watched as the humans around it fought each other, murdered and cheated one another for their own gain, while turning a blind eye to others who were less fortunate. The tree knew that while humanity had the capacity for both good and evil, they overwhelmingly chose the latter option, evil. The tree would sometimes look down upon humanity and be disgusted at what it saw, but sometimes it would take pity on them for their short lives and weakness. However, it didn't know whether or not that it liked being praised as a god or feared like a titan. But it did tolerate the level of respect the humans would show it. Even the tree, with all its foresight, knew that one day, wisdom would be lost, hope would diminish, fate be turned in different directions, valor shall be crushed, and justice would fall. It was merely waiting for that to happen, and for humanity to be entirely consumed by hatred. One day the holy tree bore a fruit of immeasurable power and destruction, a fruit that held its own power within it. Although the reason why hands were not supposed to lay themselves on the fruit had been lost to the ages, a princess who traveled from a faraway place, a place that had also been forgotten, beheld witness to the hatred and wars conflicting in the world, took it upon herself to end the spreading wars and the hatred that followed them. She knew of one way to end the wars single-handedly and bring about an end to hatred: consuming the fruit of the Shinju. Not knowing of the consequences or not caring for them at the time, she ate the fruit of the tree and gained its glorious power and the might that came with it. With new and unreachable power at her disposal, the princess laid siege to the world, using the power as a weapon to silence the lives of those who would spread hatred and bring about more wars. But instead of ending wars peacefully, she opted for a more forceful method, one which would make anyone submit to her will and be slaves to her visual prowess. The princess's name was Kaguya Otsutsuki, and for her benevolence for ending the wars and stopping the spread of hatred was she named the Usagi no Megami, rabbit goddess, because of her two horn-like protrusions which resembled rabbit ears. Like the Shinju, Kaguya was also worshipped as a living god on earth. People bowed before her in respect and reverence for her power and divine will that many considered to have no equal. However, Kaguya had not broken the chain of hatred and instead merely fractured it, where it could be repaired, and through time her deeds were not enough for war and anger, jealousy and a lust for power, sprouting and boiling within the hearts of men. So she forced more and more people to submit to her iron will to stop the hatred from spreading. But her power, which was once praised, was now feared, and instead of being called the Usagi no Megami, she was instead the Oni demon. At some point Kaguya would give birth to two sons, both of which were born with the same power as her own. These two boys would gain legendary power of their own through the use of their inherent power. However, the tree from which its fruit was consumed had also fallen under humanity's curse. Angered and outraged at the arrogant theft of its power, the tree's surfacing fiery hatred had appeared before Kaguya's own magnificent eyes before she even knew the consequences of her actions. The tree underwent a metamorphosis of its own, transforming into a vile creature whose image mirrored that of its rage. A beast that was christened the Jubi, 10 tails, for its 10 massive tails which could split the land in half. The beast rampaged across the land hoping to retrieve its lost power, and to seek vengeance upon Kaguya for her arrogant acts. All the world felt the might of its hatred, and its howl seeped into the very souls of those who lived in the world. Both men and beasts cowered before it, pleading for mercy where they would receive none. The two sons of Kaguya, in an attempt to repent for their mother's sins, faced the beast in combat. The two brothers fought in a cataclysmic battle that scarred the earth forever. The two sons with all their power had fought to the near end of their will to defeat the beast and bring about forgiveness for their mother. But eventually the two struck down the beast in a mighty fashion. However, the Jubi was connected to the world, just as the world was connected to it. It was basically immortal, so if they couldn't kill the beast, then the creature must be sealed within a person's body so to not bring about even more catastrophe. The older son by the name of Hagoromo became the beast's jail and housed the animal within him. And like his mother before him, his own power soared to new heights upon becoming the jailer of the Jubi. He like his mother became a god, one even more worshipped than his mother, wielding the greatest weapon in the world. Chakra. Hagoromo would later call this mysterious power, Chakra. And unlike his mother who weaponized Chakra, Hagoromo wished to use his inherent Chakra to bring about a more peaceful solution to the world. Hagoromo, who was a monk, later became known as a savior and would later be universally called the Sage of the Six Paths, created a religion, one which people would aspire to and believe in, give them hope and bring about a peace. This religion was named Ninshu, Shinobi sect. Hagoromo distributed his chakra to people, giving them the same gifts. People would connect the chakra with their spiritual energies, allowing others to understand each other and pray for each other's safety while wishing them a good life. However, this had the unintended effect of the people abusing the power they were given and weaponized it to suit their own needs, by connecting chakra with their physical energies, and so many wars were started again and again, but instead using chakra to wage them. Hagoromo would later on bear two sons would also inherit his same chakra and his own gifts. While his younger, fraternal, twin brother, Hamura would bear two daughters, each inheriting the same powers as their father. Hagoromo named his older son, Indra, and his younger son, Asura. Hamura named his older daughter, Surya, and his younger daughter, Mitra. And as the sage and his brother noted, the older son of Hagoromo was born with his eyes' spiritual energy and chakra along with a unique dojutsu, the devolved version of Hagoromo's own dojutsu, which would later be called the Sharingan. While the younger son was born with his body, his life force and physical energy, and an amazingly powerful stamina and endurance, and an inherent aptitude at senjutsu. The older daughter of Hamura was born with her father's perception, his fine chakra and control, along with the dojutsu known as the Byakugan. While the younger daughter was born with her father's structure, the ability to manipulate her bones to the highest defense, or offense, to create new and unseen ways of strength and combat. However, the difference between their respective talents were extreme. Indra, born with the eyes, was hailed a genius, a prodigy who could accomplish anything with little to no effort, who would later grow up living a solitary life, believing that people would merely inhibit his growth and potential. While Asura, born with the body, did not inherit any of his father's or brother's natural talents. Asura could do nothing on his own, but through his determination and will, along with the ideals of relying on others, his friends, did Asura's talents bloom like a flower in spring. Did he eventually gain power equal to that of his brothers. While unlike Indra, who led a solitary life, believing that people would only hinder him, Asura became a capable leader, amassing many loyal followers, most of whom were his childhood friends, and like his father had wished, began to spread Ninshu to the world through the help of his friends. Upon his deathbed, seeing both Indra's and Asura's accomplishments, did the sage choose between the two of them, the heir of Ninshu. The candidates: the prodigious and brilliant Indra, or the no-good, untalented Asura. Knowing of his younger son's exploits and the quality of never giving up on the good inside people, gave Hagoromo hope that the quality known as cooperation and love would bring about true peace, while the lust of power and dominance would only bring about a temporary peace through fear, made Hagoromo choose Asura as the heir to Ninshu. Furious over his father's choice and being denied what he felt was his, Indra challenged his father's decision. Overcome with anger, jealousy, and hate, did Indra attack Asura, trying to claim what he felt was his birthright. This feud between the two brothers would escalate between their respective families, causing a cold war between the two families that would continue on, never ending through the generations, endless bitter hatred. Indra's descendants would take on the name of Uchiha, the flames of their hatred continuously burning. While Asura's descendants would later be called the Senju clan, inheriting their forefathers' ideals of peaceful coexistence and love. And through distant relations, the Uzumaki clan would also become descendants of Asura. However, something occurred that had not been seen before in the world, something not even Hagoromo or Kaguya had foreseen. When the two brothers died, their natural chakra remained even after their bodies were destroyed, causing the two brothers to reincarnate themselves into various individuals throughout history within their descendants, fueling and continuing the brothers' bloody battle. And with each transmigration, the reincarnations would grow stronger. And like the cycle of the seasons, the cycle of death, transmigration and reincarnation would continue, and the suns would reincarnate themselves into their newest lives. Both brothers existing and never truly dying, like yin and yang, one cannot exist without the other. In the land of fire, a country known for its large forests and bright and warm weather, even in winter, the sun seemed to shine endlessly. In the land of fire, the warmth it would radiate filling every crevice of shadow within a person. The birds were chirping happily, and the animals of the forests were enjoying their peaceful existence among the forests and trees. The brisk air of summer was saturating the atmosphere, creating a serene scene and utter serenity. It was almost as if nothing could ruin this moment. However, massive black spheres expanded from nowhere, destroying everything that was caught within their presence, and shaking the earth to its very core. That earthquakes rocked the ground and mountains were crumbling as if they were made of pebbles. Birds were fleeing and animals were running from the devastation, trying to save their own lives so they wouldn't be collateral damage. Their cries were so loud you could hear them miles away. Terror seemed to have stricken their hearts, and their natural instincts were taking over. Anyone who had a mind would be rightly fleeing the area, for two gods were locked in battle and they were scarring the very land they were walking upon. These gods were two men. They grew up together, fought together, laughed together, and were involved in a wide array of mischievous activities. They were brothers, best friends, they shared everything with each other. But now, they were enemies, fighting over something that was now meaningless. Their powers were beyond human comprehension. Their chakra itself could shatter the ground by simply lifting a finger. Both were everything that anybody could aspire to be, gods. No, they were far above gods. They were beings that could sit atop the sky and bathe themselves in their respective light. One of the individuals was a tall man with fair skin. He had onyx eyes that looked like it could swallow darkness itself, but his eyes were now blood red with tomo in them, and his left eye was unique, but for the moment, he kept that eye closed. He had long, frayed black hair, with bangs that framed his face and reached down to his collarbone. His hair was windswept on the top, which formed into spikes. His hair at the back also reached down near his shoulder blades. He was incredibly handsome, as most women who he walked past would become infatuated with him. He wore a purple long-sleeved coat which ended into 3 coat tails and was ankle-length, and a high collar with magatama held by strings on the collar and a symbol of a red and white fan on the back of the coat. He wore bladed ninja gauntlets over the coat with armored clawed gloves and bladed shoulder pads and black armor on his chest. He wore a purple rope belt which was tied into a bow, bladed shin guards and clawed boots. The armor was also tight, allowing anyone to see his muscle underneath, but this didn't prohibit his movement. He also wore large prayer beads around his neck and hung loosely over his right shoulder. His opponent was also a tall man but with slightly tanned skin. He had deep, ocean blue eyes that just seemed to flow like water. He had spiky golden hair that could make the sun jealous and envious, with streamlined bangs framing his face. His right bangs were longer than his left, reaching his collarbone, while his left bangs were chin-length. Some of his hair was tied into a ponytail held together by bandages. He had 3 black whisker marks on each cheek, giving him a vulpine appearance, and upon his forehead were markings of a crimson circle with a dot in the middle, reminiscent of a third eye. He wore mostly black attire. He wore black armored pants, with clawed boots and a blue rope belt that was tied into a knot hanging out in front. He had black armor on his chest and skin-tight attire underneath, the same as his black-haired opponent. He wore a black pronged shoulder pads and prong bracers with clawed gloves, with prong knee pads. He also was wearing a crimson-colored sleeveless coat with a frayed hemline seemingly worn out, from long battles with black flame motifs also on the edges, and a high collar with silver magatama held by strings. And on the back of the coat was a symbol of what appeared to be a vajra surrounded by a white circle, and around his neck were red beads which sported a large wooden black medallion with a red tassel on it. He was also carrying a large white scroll with black swirling wind motifs on his back. But right now his form was mud with grit and blood, from battling his counterpart, for who knows how long, but the blonde could only assume that it must have been hours. However, his own opponent was bloodied and covered in grime, and some of their clothing were torn in places such as their torsos and legs, and instead of blue eyes his eyes were now golden amber with a slit for a pupil. These 2 men were respectively Sasuke Uchiha, the Getsumin Uraneshi, lunar diviner, and the Bagami, fanged god, and Naruto Senju, the Teiyo Gensha, solar prophet, and the Tsubasakami, wind god. Naruto was currently embroiled in a battle with his greatest rival and his greatest friend, but why they were fighting was still unknown. Katan, Gokamekyaku, fire release, great fire annihilation, yelled Sasuke, intent on killing the man that was like a brother to him. The Uchiha legend spewed out a massive wall of intense flames at the blonde, who went through hand seals to counterattack, with a jutsu unique to the blondes. Senpo, Kinten Tetsubogo Kabe, Sage Art, metal release iron protective wall, said Naruto, ending his seals on the dog sign, and in a second a humongous wall of silver metal made of iron that, and tied together with nuts and bolts, erupted from the ground and shielded the blonde from any harm. Although the flames did heat up the metal, but other than that it stood strong against the jutsu. Naruto in a burst of speed leaped over the wall and landed in front of Sasuke, where he punched him in the gut and followed up with a roundhouse kick which sent the black-haired man rolling across the ground and spitting blood. Naruto went through hand seals to restrain his friend so he could finish this fight. Senpo, Mokuton Seigen Nitarapu, Sage Art, would release restricting root trap, said Naruto, ending his seals with the snake seal, which was commonly affiliated with the wood release. And from the ground, massive entangling roots began to surround Sasuke, hoping to hold him in place so Naruto could deal the final blow, but the Uchiha would have none of that, and unsheathed his sword which he was hiding behind his back and channeled his lightning chakra through it, cutting up the roots. The Uchiha regained his footing and jumped away from the roots, and started to prepare for Naruto's next attack. The blonde, partly knowing that his enemy would do that, also took out his own signature weapons. He channeled some of his mighty chakra into wrist seals which he had transcribed into his wrists for such a purpose. And what he held in his hands were two identical short staves that were as tall from his feet to his waist, perfect for bashing an opponent and reach. The two childhood friends rushed at each other, hoping to land a blow on the other. Sasuke performed a downward slash which Naruto easily blocked the attack with one of his staves and attempted to bash Sasuke with the other staff in his hand. But Sasuke saw the attack coming with his Sharingan and was able to jump over the blonde to his unguarded backside. Sasuke then attempted to stab the renowned Senju leader in the back, but Naruto countered by blocking the sword with one of his staves, causing sparks to fly from the grinding of the metals. Sasuke didn't have enough time to duck before he was clobbered in the head with one of Naruto's staves, which made the Uchiha leader to stumble across the ground and become disoriented from the blow, and some blood to trail from a wound on his head. If Sasuke was serious, he knew that Naruto was stronger than he was, something which infuriated the Uchiha to no end. So he couldn't afford to take many hits, from taijutsu or ninjutsu, but his skills and abilities evened out the power difference. But the same thing applied for his equally legendary opponent because of the blonde's unique Keki Genkai, the Mokuton and the Kinten, wood release and the metal release. Wood release allowed Naruto to create plants, trees and general wood out of nowhere by simultaneously combing earth chakra and water chakra, a fabled ability that only the blonde's ancestor, the Shodame Hokage, possessed. It surprised many in the Hidden Leaf village upon discovering that Shodame's descendant also had the same Keki Genkai he had. While the metal release was an entirely new one, by combining earth chakra with lightning chakra was Naruto able to create metal and rust to attack and defend himself in areas. Although it was noted that it couldn't control Biju, but it was able to restrain them because of the metal's certain properties. However, Sasuke didn't know that the Kinten was just as coveted as the Mokuton. Sasuke, even though he didn't have as much power as Naruto, his skill with his clan's techniques and his own prowess with the Sharingan and its forms were enough to even the playing field between the two combatants. Besides, skill and power were similar but vastly different. Both combatants rushed at each other in a burst of speed, and met in a clash that pushed the other away, where they had a stare down for a few minutes. Both having enough, Naruto ran to the left while Sasuke ran to the right, at phenomenal speeds that not even the naked eye could perceive. They ran so far and so fast that they were in a different place altogether, mountain cliffs and slopes away from where they were, and while they were running they were attempting to strike each other with their respective weapons, but neither one got the advantage over the other. They both came sliding to a halt. Naruto tried to clobber Sasuke with both of his staves, but the Uchiha smoothly blocked it with his sword. But Naruto wasn't finished, and with a swift change in his feet tried to bash Sasuke again with a single staff, but Sasuke held his sword in a reverse position and pressed his free hand against it to hold back the strength of his rival. Then Sasuke pushed against the sword and tried to slash Naruto horizontally, but it failed as the blonde staff, which was still blocking the sword, was overturned into a reverse position and effectively blocked Sasuke's sword. Both parties' weapons then rebounded against the other, and Naruto took advantage of that to hit Sasuke some more, but with the Uchiha's powerful eyes he was able to dodge them efficiently, and jumped in the air, tried to slash Naruto with his sword in a reverse position, but the blonde slid and ducked under the attack easily because of the blonde's increased perception from the senjutsu running through his body constantly. With his sword still in a reverse position, Sasuke again attempted to stab Naruto in his unguarded back, but the Senju leader used one of his staves to redirect the sword where sparks were flying from the scraping. But this didn't stop Sasuke as he spun around to Naruto's left side and tried to slash him. But the man, likened to a dragon, only jumped away and landed on a cliff where he was using his chakra to keep him standing on the cliffside and away from danger. Katon, Ryuan Hoka no Jutsu, Fire Release, Dragon Flame Release Song Technique, yelled Sasuke as he brought his lips to his mouth and fired off multiple heads of dragons aimed right at Naruto, who expertly dodged the dragon heads and kept running against the cliff face so to keep dodging the attack. Naruto in response went through his own seals to battle Sasuke. Senpo, Kinten Ryasanden Iki, Sage Art, Metal Release Shrapnel Breath, yelled Naruto as he fired off small shards of piercing metal at Sasuke, who ran so to avoid the deadly technique, just as Naruto was avoiding his. Sasuke jumped up to Naruto's level so to avoid the shrapnel and gain a footing for the blonde, the Uchiha leader when though hand seals for a fire jutsu of epic level. A jutsu Sasuke invented himself so to kill his rival for whom he had been fighting for years on end. Katan Hanotora Yuta, Fire Release, Flame Tiger Song, yelled Sasuke as he blew out a stream of fire that took the shape of a tiger's head which flew at Naruto with frightening speed and size. Naruto in response went though hand seals for a jutsu of his own invention also. Senpo Mokutan, Ryuchokyo Saicho, Sage Art, would release Dragon Taming Growth, yelled Naruto and formed the cliffside 5 stream-like branches adorned with dragon heads that surged towards Sasuke's flame tiger, and the advanced nature transformation dispersed the flames and remained relatively intact. The dragon heads then flew at Sasuke ready to bite and shred him apart. However, with Sasuke's right Sharingan he was able to predict the dragon's movements, and dodge them with moves that looked akin to water. Sasuke then prepared his sword for a killing blow by channeling lightning through it, increasing its piercing attack through vibrations. Naruto readied one of his staves and channeled wind chakra through it, increasing its blunt force damage. Both met in a clash of metal and a small shockwave rocked the area. Sasuke using his innate agility kicked Naruto in the back and sent him flying away. However, the blonde was a tough individual and the kick didn't hurt that much. The blonde regained himself in midair and sealed away his staves, readying himself for a fist fight. He jumped on a wrecked bridge that was nearby that had rocks decorating it, most likely backlash from the god's attacks. Naruto ducked in time to save himself from a horizontal attack from Sasuke. From Sasuke's viewpoint it was a vertical attack, and Sasuke landed on a jutting rock just behind Naruto. In response, Sasuke attacked Naruto relentlessly with his lightning-enhanced attacks, but the blonde dodged them easily and without fear. Sasuke changed his tactics and tried to attack Naruto with a vertical slash that would split the man's head in two. However, Naruto caught the attack with his palms and with ease and precision tossed Sasuke head over heels to his right, which made the Uchiha lose his balance and roll across the ground and scraping his clothing. He regained his footing with enough time to dodge Naruto, who was right in his face. Sasuke dodged Naruto and slashed him across the back, only to realize that the clone poofed away in a puff of smoke. Sasuke widened his lone opened eye and looked back to see his Senju rival about to punch him in the face, to which the Uchiha head didn't have enough time to dodge and took the full brunt of the attack, which was a fist impacting against his face, making his whole skull shake. The force of the punch was so great that it launched Sasuke backwards and onto the torn ground of the cliffside, which was breaking itself from the two gods' attacks. Sasuke landed on the ground in a heap but picked himself up with barely enough time to dodge flying spinning blossoms, which were flying fast enough that they literally caught on fire, creating sharp piercing damage from the petals and burns from the flames. Sasuke kept dodging them efficiently. He knew that Naruto was resorting to his Keki Genkai because Sasuke could copy his other elemental jutsu with his Sharingan. He knew the blonde's jutsu very well, from all the times they fought against each other. That jutsu was Senpo, Mokutan Bosiki Haihana, Sage Art, would release spinning fire blossom. No wonder they were called advanced natures, since they were stronger than normal natures for sure. Senpo, Kinten Hibiki Gangu Shaku, Sage Art, metal release resounding gong shock, yelled Naruto as he appeared over the bridge, forming seals which ended on the dog's seal, which was commonly affiliated with Kinten. And tiny silver globs came pouring out of his skin. Another part of Kinten is that it can manipulate the iron in a person's blood. The globs began forming into massive gongs twice the size of men with square holes in them, and they began falling on Sasuke, who jumped away to avoid the metal gongs. But he had to be careful as the gongs could create shockwaves that could disorient him. Raitun, Tora Bunseki, lightning release, tiger censure, yelled Sasuke as barreling lightning came shooting out of his hands and aimed at Naruto, who couldn't dodge the lightning in time and in the air was hit in the chest by the thunderbolt, and came falling to the ground with his chest sizzling like a burnt cake. Naruto, not one to be outdone by his enemy, went through hand seals for another Kinten jutsu. Senpo, Kinten Kaidana Kane Nami, Sage Art, metal release mighty bell wave, yelled Naruto as a massive Asian bell came falling down on top of Sasuke, and we would have most likely crushed him if he didn't move away. Naruto then raced to the bell and punched it, which caused the shockwave to resound and hit Sasuke in the chest, and after the shockwave the bell itself followed after and again hit Sasuke in the with all its might, nearly breaking the Uchiha's bones. Sasuke was getting annoyed at how he was being made into a punching bag, so he had little choice. The man that was likened to a tiger stood up to his full might and faced his opponent. He channeled lightning chakra into his left hand, however instead of being its usual blue color it was a deep black color akin to lacquer. It sparkled around his hand as if it was a fragile doll ready to break, and it made a chirping sound akin to birds in response. Naruto also stared at him but closed his eyes and started forming chakra into a sphere in the right palm of his hand. The chakra started wispily dancing around his form, which was strong enough to create gusting winds around him. The sphere was as large as a basketball. But the sphere looked unstable and was fluctuating wildly instead of keeping a solid form, and it looked ready to burst in a moment's notice. The sphere was a bright white color that rivaled snow. The two gods then rushed at each other, ready to end the other. Sasuke brought up his black, chirping hand. Naruto heaved his hand holding the unstable, wispy ball of chakra. Inton, Im released Chidori. Yotan, Yam released Rasengan. Both attacks met in a violent clash and the area around them ruptured and splintered and winds heaved the dust around them. The attacks formed a black and purple dome around them, produced from the conflicting energies. Soon the dome exploded like shattered glass from the different chakra and both leaders of the most powerful clans were sent hurtling backwards and crashed into the ground leaving deep skid marks in the ground. Sasuke was lying on his back while Naruto was laying on his stomach. Both men got up with scratches over their forms, but both were relatively unaffected. However, Sasuke gritted his teeth at his rival. He could have easily killed him just but refused. He had seen the more powerful levels of the Rasengan alone and Naruto wasn't even using his strongest version. Did he think Sasuke as weak compared to the Uchiha? Sasuke wouldn't stand for it. It felt like he was weak, and he hated that feeling. In order for Sasuke to secure his victory over his Senju rival, he would resort to full power to kill the god of shinobi. Slowly but surely Sasuke opened his left eye revealing, not a Sharingan underneath but a red Rinnegan, the fabled eye of the Sage of the Six Paths. But Sasuke's was unique, since it had the concentric rings but also had 6 tomo along those rings, giving it a dazzling but yet bloodthirsty appearance. With the powers of the Rinnegan, maybe Sasuke could win. Naruto seeing his opponent revealing his trump card. Is this what you truly want? Sasuke questioned Naruto as he stared into the Rinnegan in his friend's left eye. Nothing would please me more, spoke Sasuke as his eyes was literally piercing into Naruto's head. Then I have little choice, spoke Naruto as his head became downcast with sorrow. And soon yellow flames started flickering off Naruto's form. His clan symbol on the back of his cloak changed and now became a black pattern of the Rinnegan with 9 tomo arranged in 3 rows beneath it. His entire body was wrapped in black and yellow flames before stabilizing into physical clothing. The blue robe became a bright yellow color, and a yellow circular seal appeared on his stomach. His sleeveless coat, which was black in color, became the same magnificent yellow, and on his pronged shoulder pads black circular seals appeared with the pieces of his armor becoming yellow also. His entire body underneath the cloak, save for his boots and his fingers, became black, resembling a bodysuit, and his skin remained the same. His hair became a lighter shade of gold and was now floating up, along with his bangs which formed 2 distinctive horn-like tufts. Magatama markings wrapped around his collar giving him a sage-like appearance. His thin whiskers opened up into bars on his cheeks and his pupils remained the same, giving him a slight feral appearance. And behind him, black balls made of chakra floated behind him in a halo-like formation. Naruto then unsealed his 2 staves becoming ready for combat. Today we end this, said Sasuke as he used one of his clan's signature jutsus. Katon, Gokakyu no Jutsu. Fire release. Great fireball technique, said Sasuke as he molded chakra within his stomach and spewed out a massive ball of flames towards the golden man who merely stood his ground against the oncoming fireball, his eyes focused and ready to attack his opponent. Just as the fireball was about to hit him, Naruto quickly used one of his most powerful jutsu and disappeared within a lens flare, making the attack strafe past him. Sasuke, seeing something in the corner of his eyes, brought up his arm to protect himself from the punch the blonde man dealt him. He saw Naruto staring at him with his yellow eyes, unwavering. Did the Senju leader use his space-time ninjutsu to evade Sasuke's attack? Sasuke, sending chakra into his own eye, retreated from the blonde by suddenly disappearing without any form of indication. Did the Uchiha retreat from the Jinchuriki to a place that would better serve his needs? So Sasuke ran, falling back to a safer location. Naruto soon gave chase by levitating his body off the ground, and soon he was flying after the Uchiha, who kept his speed at a steady pace, ignoring the advancing Hokage. Jumping across the mountains and using his left eye to his advantage, did Sasuke narrowly escape the falling rocks that were plummeting towards him, courtesy of his old friend who was intent on crushing him. It lasted only for a few minutes. Did Sasuke make it to an advantageous location that would give him suitable high ground and attack positions. Being unable to fly himself, he then landed on a rock spire just as 2 large rocks were about to smash against him. Using his great strength, he was able to redirect the rocks with some effort away from him, where they smashed into other rock spires. However, he then felt his body grappled suddenly, pounding against him, where he looked down to see the flying Naruto holding on to, intending to pummel him against one of the spires. However, Sasuke also grabbed his opponent's body and threw him over his body, where Naruto lost control of his flight, and then smashed into a rock spire, making the ground shake a little as Sasuke then landed on another spire, staring into the spire. He then saw Naruto scraping down the side of the spire unharmed, only with a bit of dust on him. Naruto then jumped off the spire, landing on another, and jumped onto a spire, and using his flight abilities again, spun around the spire, and using his immense strength lifted the top part of the spire and threw it at Sasuke. He channeled some of his chakra to defend himself from the house-sized piece of rock that he was unable to defend against properly. Shinra Tensei, heavenly subjugation of the omnipresent god, yelled Sasuke as he created an invisible gravitational force that completely shattered the boulder, only allowing some pieces of rubble to strike him. However, Sasuke fell into Naruto's trap as the blonde created two enormous chakra arms that gripped two of the spires together and then attempted to slam the two of them in between Sasuke. However, the Uchiha channeled chakra into his Rinnegan and used his own space-time technique. Kamiyami! Sasuke then shifted himself atop another rock spire higher than the last one, escaping the two pillars that would have crushed him otherwise. But Naruto wasn't done. Turning his two larger chakra arms into 5 smaller ones, did he grab several pieces of falling rock out of the air, and then made a single hand seal, which phase changed the rock into molten boulders of lava. Senpo, Shakugaryugan no Jutsu, Sage Art, Lava Release Scorching Stream Rock Technique. And with that, Naruto hurled the massive molten boulders towards Sasuke, whose Rinnegan was still recharging Kamiyami, and so was forced to evade the rocks as he jumped around the pillars, trying not to be melted. The pillars fell to the ground because their structure was quite literally melted. As Sasuke was retreating from the Hokage's assault, Naruto took to the air once again and flew after his Uchiha counterpart. Naruto, seeing the jumping form of the Uchiha, swiftly flew down towards the ground and made a single seal. Senpo, Katan Niko Hibachi, Sage Art, Fire Release Cat Fire Bowl, yelled Naruto as his fingers were encased in blue flames, where he clawed at the air, releasing multiple blue fireballs with whips of black within them, heading straight for Sasuke. Sasuke, using his chakra to suspend himself on the side of a cliff away from the rock spires, where he turned around and channeled chakra into his right eye, where his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan appeared in his right eye and performed the other ability of his exclusive dojutsu. Kamiyami, said Sasuke as before him the blue fireballs stopped in midair just as they were about to hit him, and suddenly they disappeared from sight, where instead Naruto found himself surrounded by his own blue fireballs, where he didn't have enough time to defend himself before he was bombarded from every corner with fire dazzling the sky. And Sasuke, with his cold eyes watching from his position as the multiple blue explosions rocked the sky. He then saw a shadow move out of the explosion, allowing Sasuke to view it as the shadow was rolling across the ground across the cliffs, and it was battered against the hard ground. It was of course Naruto, whose entire body was singed from head to toe from the heat of his own attack, and the tips of his golden spiky hair were singed from being burned from his own attack, and some of his armor was also burnt, but otherwise he would be fine. Getting back onto his feet, Naruto glared at Sasuke. Guess the attack didn't give him a blow to his pride. If it wasn't for Naruto shielding himself with his Gudurama, truth-seeking ball, at the last minute, he would have suffered far more serious injuries. Of course he couldn't protect himself completely from his own attack, since the Senjutsu-enhanced attack disrupted the ball's form. But luckily the Hokage was durable enough to survive the attack. However, Naruto also knew that Sasuke was near open to attack, so creating a hand seal, Naruto flew up in the air again, and with him came a large rock the size of the house and threw it down on Sasuke, who had to release his chakra, holding him up on the cliff. Naruto then landed on the ground, into a small streaming waterfall, where he made 3 hand seals while his legs were in the water. Senpo, Ninja Combo Ado, Sansengo Kiryutajiki, Sage Art, Ninja Combo Art Acid Coral Torrent Shock. And as Naruto ducked his hands into the water, infusing acid bubbles together with coral with a water shell surrounding it, did he hurl large torrents of water with the acidic coral towards Sasuke, who stopped his fall and began dodging the blasts of corrosive water and coral. He knew that if he tried to absorb the technique, he would be left wide open for Naruto to attack him with taijutsu. So his best option was to dodge the Rokudame's attacks. However, even Sasuke had a limit as Naruto kept hurling the waves of acidic water and coral. He soon was hit in the leg by a blast where the coral started growing on his leg, restricting his movement, and because of the acid burning his armor to his leg. Naruto, seeing his chance, began boiling his very own chakra to inhuman levels where copious amounts of steam was simmering off his form. Launching himself forward, Naruto attempted to punch Sasuke, to which the Uchiha knew if he was struck by the punch, he just might end up dead. As he was falling, Sasuke held out his hand, gritting his teeth from the burning coral, and just as Naruto was about to strike, Sasuke used the powers of his Rinnegan. Shinra Tensei, said Sasuke just in time to repel Naruto's attack. But the Jinchuriki has experience with the technique and knew that if struck with equal or opposing force, then the technique can be countered, and so Naruto boiled even more of his chakra, increasing the temperature and plowing his way through Sasuke's attack, where he struck the Uchiha leader in the chest, and the cliff they were facing was completely shattered from Naruto's punch as the Uchiha was pulverized through the mountain from Naruto's steam-enhanced taijutsu. The punch was so strong that Sasuke was smashed all the way through the mountain and ended up on the other side with Naruto flying after him. When Sasuke finally came to a halt from the punch, he coughed up blood at the feeling of his ribs being shattered from the punch. He could feel his body lying upon what felt like grain. He opened his eyes to see the sun shining in his red eyes. Did the sun have a shadow? He widened his eyes, seeing Naruto ready to punch him again with his steam-enhanced strength, which would kill Sasuke if he was struck by the punch, as his body couldn't withstand such tremendous force again. Quickly sending chakra into his Rinnegan eye, Sasuke used his exclusive Mangekyo technique. "Kamiyami," said Sasuke just as Naruto was about to shatter his entire body. Instead, Naruto smashed his fist against empty space and the ground of layered sand with Sasuke some distance away. As the Uchiha was looking around himself, he couldn't help but groan at his location, a sea of sand, which was the worst place for him. But he also saw the amount of steam radiating off Naruto decrease. He could only boil his chakra at that level for a short amount of time. Quickly breaking the burning coral off his leg with his fist, Sasuke frowned at seeing that half of his left leg was covered in burns that was still hot. He touch. The coral had grown at a faster rate than he expected, but the acid burned slower, fortunately for him. "Senpo, son of Mujo Norohaji, sage art, sandwich curse hold," spoke Naruto as he slammed his hands on the ground where dark blue curse seal patterns appeared and were rushing towards Sasuke at such extreme speed that the Uchiha had little time to counter before the curse seal covered half of his body, binding his movements. Sasuke, knowing that he couldn't remove the seal from his body, knew that he would have to fight in such a state. However, he would have to leave the desert quickly, as it was the worst place to be if he was fighting the leader of the Senju clan. His fears came true as sand all around him began spiraling around him, sinking him into the ground. He looked up just as half of his legs were swallowed by the sand to see the Hokage's hand outstretched towards him, and he was slowly clenching his hands slowly. Sasuke knew that if he didn't think of something soon, he would be crushed to death by the Senju leader. He couldn't use Kamiyami in his left eye since it was still recharging, and he couldn't use the Kamiyami in his right eye since the sand obeyed Naruto's will and he wouldn't kill himself. Sasuke, thinking of such an idea, raised his right hand towards the Hokage. Sasuke would use the basics of his abilities. "Bansho Tenin, heavenly attraction of all of creation," yelled Sasuke as Naruto was soon swept off his feet, though with some resistance. Even though Sasuke knew it might be a deadly move, if it meant victory over his opponent and his superior power, then Sasuke was all for it. It was only because of his mastery of the Rinnegan that Sasuke was even able to hold his own against Naruto. With Naruto swept off his feet, the sand stopped spiraling in on Sasuke as he reached to his waist. Then Sasuke charged lightning chakra into his left hand with great effort because of the curse seal binding his body, as Naruto came flying towards him. "Chidori," spoke Sasuke as he rammed his left hand into Naruto as the lightning surged around. Soon he pierced Naruto in the chest. However, instead of being met with blood, he was instead met with sand, as Sasuke had pierced a sand clone of his opponent. But the good Adama was behind him. However, he soon saw the 9 black balls of chakra fly in from behind and started floating around the real Naruto, who was staring at him from behind. He then looked back at the sand clone, who latched onto his arm and began covering Sasuke's entire body. Soon Sasuke was being covered by the sand, and the sinkhole was swallowing him up again. Naruto, seeing that his rival was utterly trapped, went through seals for one of his most powerful Kekigeknai jutsu. "Senpo, Kinten Tetsu no Hoshi, Sage Art, Metal Release Iron Star," said Naruto, and within an instant, a black jagged spiked ball appeared from behind him out of the ground. It was twice the size house and with rectangular holes in it with roaring flames on the inside where the flames escaped through the rectangular holes. Without warning, the black spiked metal ball of death rolled towards Sasuke, and if the ground wasn't sand, it would demolish anything within its path as it sped towards its target. Finally reaching Sasuke, it sunk into the sinkhole along with the Uchiha, where it exploded in a shower of orange flame where sand was upheaved and flew everywhere. However, sensing something was wrong, Naruto saw a shadow fly out of the sand and flames. And he beheld Sasuke as he stood upon a mountainous hawk that easily dwarfed trees, buildings, and large rock structures. It didn't take a genius to figure out that Sasuke obviously summoned the hawk and escaped the effects of his Tetsu no Hoshi. Naruto could also see Sasuke's right arm was bleeding heavily. The armor upon it was gone, showing the skin underneath. It had several burns across it, and jagged black metal shards within it also, and some of his hair was singed, and his face was burnt, but other than that his wounds would be superficial. However, he had a massive disadvantage because Naruto's curse seal was still clinging to half of Sasuke's body, almost binding his movements completely. So Naruto, knowing that the hawk was faster than him in the air, would never be able to catch it with his sheer speed alone. So this was going to be a test of speed versus strength. Bringing his thumb to his mouth, Naruto bit on his thumb, drawing blood, and slammed his hand on the ground. "Kuchios no Jutsu, summoning technique," yelled Naruto as he was surrounded by a huge plume of smoke. Sasuke atop his widened his eyes at the sound of trumpeting could be heard from the plume of smoke. As the smoke settled, Sasuke could see Naruto standing on an equally colossal being, possibly even larger, and from the smoke, Sasuke could see the gray leathery skin of a massive elephant, with large ears and a long trunk that looked like it could smash mountains. "Sasuke-sama, this will be difficult. Zohoko's skin is almost as strong as titanium and his attacks will kill me within only a few hits," we'll have to be cautious. Spoke the hawk to its summoner, to which Sasuke nodded. The chief of the elephant tribe was not an opponent anyone should take lightly, and both Sasuke and the hawk knew this well. Takahani, stay at this altitude while I devise a strategy, but be prepared to move for if they attack, commanded Sasuke, to which the hawk named Takahani nodded at his master. I'll need to create an opening and trap Naruto and Zahoko. Wait, that can work, thought Sasuke as the thought came to him. Takahani, on my signal get me as close as you can without getting hit. I'll be expending a lot of chakra, so this has to work. Yes, Sasuke-sama, said the hawk. While down below upon the desert, Naruto and his elephant summoning Zahoko were having their own conversation. I'm sorry, Zahoko-san, I hope I wasn't interrupting something back at your home, spoke Naruto politely. Not at all, Naruto-sama, so what can I help you with? Said the elephant chief with a smile on his face, but Naruto merely pointed towards Sasuke and Takahani. Oh, him. I wondered when he would make his move. He's always been devious, spoke the elephant, to which Naruto nodded. I assume you have a plan. Let him make the first move. Until then, stand your ground and prepare your attacks, said Naruto as Zahoko prepared himself. Naruto then went through hand seal where the snad on the ground began shifting, while Sasuke narrowed his eyes in suspicion at what the gold and black-clothed man was thinking. Senpo, Mokutan Hanayahyo, Sage Art, would release Flower Arrow Hail, said Naruto as he thrusted his arms out towards Sasuke as numerous purple flowers with 6 long purple petals, long stalks as twice the height of a man with long barbs sticking out from their centers. I thought we were going to wait for him to attack, thought Zahoko. Takahani, move, yelled Sasuke as the hawk took evasive action as the multitude of plants started shooting out barbs towards Sasuke and Takahani, who were doing their best to not get hit by the literal hail of arrows from the flowers. As one nearly penetrated Sasuke's head, the Uchiha for a split second sniffed the tip of the barb and deduced that the barbs were coated with poison. Sasuke knew that if he was even scratched with that poison it was death, no escape. If it wasn't Senjutsu enhanced, you would be paralyzed rather than die. But still Sasuke had to be careful. Having Takahani fly downward towards Naruto and Zahoko, did Sasuke channel chakra into his Rinnegan eye. Rinbo, Hengoku, Wheel Grave, Border Jail, said Sasuke as he focused his left red eye intently on Naruto, who sensed a disturbance. Creating a hand seal to combat Sasuke, Naruto simply told his elephant summon to stay still. Zahoko, hold still, and don't move, commanded Naruto, to which the massive elephant nodded. Senpo, Ryubi no Jamin, Sage Art, Gate of the Dragon Tail, said Naruto as he clapped his hands together as 2 rows of 20 white pillars as tall as Zahoko fell from the sky and dug themselves into the sandy ground all around the elephant and his master on each corner, and Naruto could sense their presence, the shadows battering themselves against the gates, cracking the incredibly strong wood. However, what the blonde didn't know that this was Sasuke's plan. Sasuke then brought up his right arm and with great effort lifted his left arm, because the curse seal is hampering his movement, clapped his hands together as he stood upon his mountainous hawk. Chibaku Tensei, heavenly body bursting from the earth, yelled Sasuke as he created a small black orb in between his hands which only grew in shape and soon was twice as large as his hand, and doing the unthinkable and using his good arm, Sasuke threw the black sphere towards Naruto and his summon it then smacked Naruto right in the chest where it stuck to the blonde man, to which Sasuke clapped his hands together again as Naruto was thrusted up in the air again as the black sphere upon his chest acted like a gravitational center where rocks all around him began being uplifted towards the black ball. Even Zahoko wasn't immune from its effects, as the elephant was also lifted up in the air trumpeting in annoyance. Soon rocks and mountains began pelting the two of them as they couldn't defend themselves entirely from the onslaught. And in enough time the summoner and his master were devoured by rocks as the black sphere was surrounded by earth, forming a perfect sphere with Naruto and his elephant trapped in the center. Sasuke then raised his right arm where it instinctively formed a mechanical cannon raised directly at the Chibaku Tensei, and Sasuke of course fired a chakra blast that was aimed for the core of the satellite, and when it met its mark the core exploded violently, sending all the mountains and debris flying everywhere, and to see the bodies of Naruto and Zahoko smashed to the ground, and when they impacted it sounded as if thunder rang throughout the land. Sasuke could see that his attack was devastating, as that his tactic worked. If he had created the black sphere without trapping it to Naruto, then the Hokage could have destroyed the Chibaku Tensei even more easily than Sasuke did, and the blonde couldn't destroy it while he was so close to the core, otherwise he would have damaged himself more than Sasuke did. As Sasuke looked down into the large dust clouds where the two landed, he couldn't help but smirk at getting the upper hand over his stronger opponent. Tactics and planning of his skills is what Sasuke needed to defeat Naruto, otherwise he would never be able to defeat the Senju leader with just sheer power. And just for added insurance, using the Ashura path, Sasuke manifested 4 more arms out of his body, shoulder to shoulder, where the new arms performed their own individual hand seals, and Sasuke with his real arms also did a hand seal, although with effort because of his cursed body. Tengai Shinsei, Heavenly Obstacle Quaking Star, said Sasuke as he summoned a massive meteorite out of the sky as it fell through the clouds and descended upon Naruto, who opened his eyes to see the sun's light clouded by the meteorite. His form was now covered in dirt, and part of his armor was destroyed on the left side, and he had a few bleeding wounds on his body. Instantly he raised his right arm to combat the meteorite as chakra arms burst forth and grappled onto the giant rock, stopping it in its halt just as it was about to crush him and his summon. But he didn't have enough strength to halt the second meteorite that dispersed the clouds and collided with the first asteroid, which pummeled Naruto and his elephant, where a great dust cloud was seen from the attack. This only caused Sasuke to smirk in victory, believing his opponent to be defeated. He then ordered Takahani to descend to the ground level, to which he landed on the sand surrounded by rock and plants from their previous engagements. His new arms then disappeared as he dragged himself across the sand, looking amongst the rubble for his prize. He soon found it, with even more of his clothes torn and some more wounds on his body, with his 9 Gudo dammeling around him, motionless just like Naruto. Just as Sasuke was about to turn Naruto over, the wounded blonde snapped his eyes open and exuded a fine dust from his mouth that combusted into fine luminous dust that blinded Sasuke, with just enough time for Naruto to kick him away and create a hand seal. Sasuke now knew that he saw something else amongst the rubble. A large metal gnome mask some distance away from his and Naruto's position. He saw it just before he was blinded. The elephant had also survived because of Naruto. Senpo, Sansen, Sage Art, acid scattering, said Naruto as he spewed acid towards Sasuke, who was still blinded by Naruto's previous technique. The attack hit Sasuke in the left arm and his left torso that instantly burned through his clothes and armor. Feeling the burning, Sasuke instantly tore off the armor and clothing with his non-sealed arm, ripping it straight off, even though his right hand was also burned because of it. Now Sasuke was left nearly bare-chested with his armor on his chest barely hanging on, and his left arm was now armorless and sleeveless but still covered in Naruto's curse seal. Just as Takahani was about to help his master, he felt a rumbling in the ground where Zahoko came bursting out from a dust cloud with a jutsu prepared to stop the hawk from taking flight. Suetun, Zomazurappa, water release, elephant water trumpet, said the mighty beast as it brought its trunk up as it sprayed copious amounts of water on Takahani, pummeling it to the ground because of the force of the water, without wasting any time. Zahoko smashed its 2 front feet on top of the hawk, making it scream in pain at its hollow bones being crushed by the substantial weight. Takahani, having no chance, disappeared in a plume of smoke back to its home, where the elephant followed soon after, leaving Naruto and Sasuke alone. Sasuke, getting his eyesight back, knew of Takahani's disappearance, and knew that he would need his last support to deal with Naruto. Slamming his hand on the ground, Sasuke summoned the only help that could contribute to the battle. Naruto, seeing Sasuke's action, took to the air and began flying into the clouds, where he held out his hand before the clouds. Kuchios no Jutsu, yelled Naruto and Sasuke at the same time, and 2 plumes of smoke appeared on the ground and in the clouds. And from the smoke came creatures that the 2 of them have raised ever since they were children, animals that found them, they raised them, they weren't summonings, they were familiars. From the smoke on the ground came a large black whipping tail, long sharp claws that could cut mountains to shreds, rows of sharp teeth as if it could bite through trees, a muscular body perfect for combat with cuts and scars all over its form. It was predominantly gray, with black stripes, a white underbelly and red eyes. It was literally snarling and hissing, roaring a little, almost as if eager for battle, just as Sasuke was, who was standing on its forehead. It was a giant female tiger, the size of a biju. Sasuke had raised the creature ever since he was a young boy, and the tiger rarely left his side. The black shadow, Yochi the tiger. From the smoke high in the clouds, came a serpentine form twirling around the clouds. Its long body sported snow-white scales across its form, a pair of massive wings that could disperse every cloud in the sky, with semi-long limbs and claws that could scar the ground, 2 long black horns that could heft boulders the size of its head, tufts of fur around its face and chin giving it a sort of regal appearance, black teeth with 2 protruding black fangs on the sides of its mouth that could devour any human, black spikes running along its back, 2 barbels on each side of its nostrils. Its size was tremendous, as it was bigger than the tiger, and just as big as the Hokage mountain. It was the legendary dragon that Naruto had nurtured ever since it hatched from its egg, and said Hokage was riding on its forehead, looking down upon Sasuke from his altitude. The white light, Tento the dragon. Tento, without needing to be told, flew away from the battle with Naruto atop his head, while the Senju kept his eyes trained on Sasuke as the Uchiha ordered his Biju-sized tiger to give chase to the dragon and its master. As Naruto was leading the battle away from the plant-rubble-covered desert, he knew of a place where he would be offered even more advantages than the desert. Quickly ordering Tento, his dragon, to descend towards cliffs that harbored caves, did the dragon land on the ground just as Sasuke and his tiger. Yochi arrived where the Biju-sized tiger latched onto Tento, using her great claws to tear into the dragon's scales and her teeth to bite on his flesh, while Tento merely roared as it fought back against the tiger while on the cliffs, using his long body to his advantage to wrap around the tiger so to drain it of all life. Naruto meanwhile was tackled by Sasuke, into the caves as they fell on rock and mineral. Once they tumbled onto stable ground, Naruto kicked Sasuke off him, who disappeared into the darkness, with Naruto scanning his eyes all around the cave, while unsealing his two staves and combining them into a single weapon. Sasuke in the darkness merely unsheathed his sword. The cave was dark, too dark that it was near impossible to see without a sufficient source of life, the only light coming from green crystals that dotted the cave, offering minimal luminance. I don't need eyes to find you, Sasuke. I can hear your breath, smell your pride, and feel your presence. The thing is, can you find me without your eyes? Spoke Naruto, speaking into the darkness. And he raised his staff multiple times to block weapon attacks coming from Sasuke, such as large shuriken, kunai, and Sasuke strafing by with his sword and fading away into the darkness. Naruto made a single hand seal, and just as he blocked Sasuke's weapon attack, he spat ink into the Uchihas, causing him to yell in slight pain at his now blinded eyes. Naruto followed up his assault on the Uchiha by creating chakra arms that pummeled the Rinnegan wielder into the ground. Sasuke then lifted himself off the ground and rubbed the ink out of his eyes. He then channeled chakra into his left Rinnegan eye, and from his vision black flames, sprouting from his field of vision, filling the entire cave with black flame, as burning anything and everything within a crisp. Naruto, taking evasive action, used one of his Gudadana to shield himself from the flames. Quickly taking a chance to escape, Naruto flew to the roof of the cave where a door hole was visible. Sasuke, not content with his prey getting away, jumped all the way up to the hole, trying to catch up to the flying blonde. When Naruto reached the exit, he could see Sasuke running at him, jumping through the cave, where he destroyed the exit and landed outside, staring up at Naruto, who remained levitating in the air. Time to take the kitty gloves off, spoke Sasuke as he sent chakra into both of his eyes, where a purple skeletal ribcage surrounded him. So he's getting serious. If he's using that, thought Naruto as he frowned at Sasuke below. Susanoo. The Susanoo, and around Sasuke came a purple skeletal ribcage made entirely from the Uchiha's chakra. Sasuke advanced his Susanoo further and skipped all the necessary forms to reach its final state and most powerful state. Sasuke's final stabilized Susanoo was an enormous winged construct which was perfectly capable of flight. In this state, Sasuke's Susanoo was clad in armor akin to that of a samurai. Its helmet had a long tengu-like nose and accentuated eye holes, 2 spikes over the eyes, a slit stretching across its mouth, and 3 gaps on each of its cheeks and 1 on its chin. It had fiery hair, and upon its forehead was a pentagonal prism where Sasuke was floating inside. Its wings also had small finger where it would hold the Susanoo's katana. But Naruto was not intimidated by the chakra construct that dwarfed even-tailed beasts. Naruto responded to Sasuke's ethereal warrior with his own ethereal warrior. Naruto could also sense that his dragon Tento was still in battle with Sasuke's tiger Yochi. Verina, thought Naruto, as he was also encased in chakra, but unlike Sasuke, it appeared like yellow flames with black markings acting as a ribcage. And around him the yellow flames started taking on a corporeal form, with black markings across the body. And finally, Verina was complete. Verina was like Susanoo, as it encased the user in chakra, protecting them from harm. But the Verina took the form of a 3-headed, 6-armed battle avatar, with monk beads wrapped around its neck with 3 black tassels on the beads. It also sported a uniquely shaped hat with spikes facing to the right, and 2 black lines on each side between the curves of the hat, with artificial ponytail on the hat. It also sported circular seals on its shoulders and stomach, and bar-like markings on the form's hands and feet, and had 3 black lines on its torso resembling a ribcage, with a cloak of yellow chakra which swayed behind it, with 9 black lines running down, and black balls of chakra which were Naruto's Gudadama also floated behind the Verina in a halo-like fashion, and its form was constantly flickering yellow flames. Its height was enormous, as it easily equaled the Susanoo in height. Ashura's battle avatar, if you were wondering. Sasuke's Susanoo readied itself to attack Naruto by unsheathing its twin katana. Naruto's Verina responded by manifesting a short staff in each one of its 6 hands by applying shape transformation to the Gudadama. Both heavenly beings and their respective masters charged at each other. Sasuke's Susanoo raised its sword and performed a downward slash on the Verina, but the battle avatar raised 2 of its staves to block it, and with its other 4 arms it attacked the Susanoo's chest, with multiple barrages from the staves. But given that the Susanoo is mostly used for defense with considerable offense, the staves were able to cause harm to it, but not much. The Susanoo, using its free katana, attempted to slash the Senju's avatar, but Naruto, sensing the attack coming, was able to have his Verina dodge it, but the resulting slash tore apart any mountains that were in the area, cutting them in half with little to no effort. Naruto, seeing the destruction, was unafraid of it. It did nothing to break his fighting spirit. Naruto, from within his Verina, commanded the warrior to jump in the air. Sasuke, with his Sharingan, saw Naruto coming down from the sky, with his avatar's staves ready to strike him in a stabbing motion. Sasuke readied his Susanoo's wings and was able to drift away from Naruto's avatar that was just about to hit him. The result, from the force of the impact, was enough to completely shatter the entire earth they were battling on, causing it to be crushed into pieces of rock that were the size of specks of salt. Even the mountains Sasuke had cut in half were punished even more as their entire form came crashing down, becoming nothing more than dust. The trees and lakes that were nearby were uprooted and their shape was distorted. Total destruction was what remained in the mountains they were battling in, was nothing more than a rocky, splintered and gray area. Sasuke Susanoo was able to escape the immediate danger, but still, the sight was still in Sasuke's mind. Just how could his greatest enemy, someone who was born with utterly no talent or genius, able to match a prodigy such as himself? He hated feeling weak, as it proved that his opponent was stronger. Sasuke Susanoo flew down at Naruto, ready to battle him once again. "I'm not going to lose to you," thought Sasuke as he was nearing his opponent. "I will protect my village, my friends, and those who I love more than anything. If it means killing you, then I will force my hand," thought Naruto as he prepared himself for Sasuke. Both beings then met in a clash that created massive gusts of wind that blew away any dust and debris. Then both constructs jumped away from the other and fell into defensive stances where they attacked each other again with violent clashes that shook the earth to its core. Naruto and Sasuke kept attacking one another, hoping to gain an upper hand. Naruto, with a tactic in mind, had his Varana prepare the Gudadama by clutching one in each hand where it charged towards Sasuke, smashed the black balls into Sasuke's Susanoo where it disintegrated on touch, almost as if the warrior was screaming in pain from the attack. Much of the ethereal warrior was damaged and hurt where it lost a leg, an arm, and about half of its body because of the raw power of Naruto's attacks. However, Sasuke reformed the warrior and healing all damage done to its body by feeding off Sasuke's chakra. Sasuke then threw its two swords at Naruto's Varana where they cut the three-headed avatar in the side and on its shoulder, but it didn't deter it when it grabbed swords out of the air and threw them back at the Susanoo where it stabbed the warrior in the chest. Sasuke's Susanoo then jumped away, hoping to avoid the dangerous attacks that would surely kill Sasuke. Sasuke then whistled where his massive tiger came running towards him, interrupting the cat's battle with its dragon counterpart. Naruto also did the same, and Tento flapped his wings intent on getting to Naruto's location. Both legends then deactivated their guardian deities and landed on the respective heads of their familiars. "Susanoo/Varana," spoke Naruto and Sasuke at the same time, except instead they were shaping their deities around their familiars. Yochi was covered from head to tail in purple protective chakra plates and two extra rams, one over each of its shoulder, holding twin katanas in each hand. Yochi's face was covered in the helmet of the Susanoo, gaining a long Tengu nose, two horns over its ears. Samurai-like armor also sprouted its shoulders, and purple flames were flickering off its form with a hexagonal prism on her forehead, where her master was floating within with his arms crossed and the curse seal on his body disappearing. Because of the ethereal warrior, Tento was encased in flickering flames and translucent chakra. On its shoulders and stomach were circular seals and lines that ran up and down from the seals. On both sides of the dragon's face were two identical copies of the dragon's face, mirroring Naruto's singular Varana. Upon its three heads were circular hats with an artificial ponytail with two black lines and a dot on each hat. Its scales along its body disappeared, being replaced with the chakra of the Varana. It also gained two extra pair of arms with lines running down each arm. Black lines were also running along the entire length of his body, ending at the tail, and it also gained black lines on its torso looking like a ribcage and prayer beads with the tassels around its long neck, and finally gained an extra pair of wings with three black lines on the wings, and Naruto sitting within the hat of Tento staring at Sasuke. "Come, Naruto!" yelled Sasuke as he and his Susanoo-enhanced tiger pet charged at Naruto. "Be prepared, Sasuke," responded Naruto as he and his Varana-enhanced pet dragon flew at Sasuke, with both animals roaring at the other. Sasuke's tiger opened its purple-clad mouth, and what appeared to be a massive rotating wind ball formed where Sasuke stabbed it with his two Susanoo swords before launching it at Naruto as he and Tento landed on the where Naruto, channeling his chakra through the Variana, slammed one of its hand on the ground. "Kuchios, Senpo Goju Rashomon, summoning, Sage Art Quintuple Rashomon," yelled Naruto as 5 Rashomon gates appeared that were larger than Tento appeared, blocking Sasuke's attack. Naruto had Tento fly up where the blonde man made a hand seal. Why, Tento seemed to be sucking in its gut. And everywhere leaves from all around gathered around Naruto and Tento where the two of them fired of water jets from Tento's nose with razor-sharp leaves. The blonde had gathered where the leaves and the water mixed together, where the pressure from the water enhanced the leaves' cutting power, where they pierced into Sasuke's Susanoo-enhanced tiger. But the tiger was fine as its defenses were vastly increased. Then the two parties charged at each other in a blinding light. Later, their battle was coming to an end. Both opponents were pushed to their absolute limits in power. Their clothes were burnt and were hanging limply, just barely clinging to their bodies. They had oozing wounds from the attacks they dealt to each other. Their hair was caked with blood and their bodies were covered in bruises, and both were panting heavily. The environment around them was barren and gray, and all life had been exterminated from the area. There was little to no color. The trees were gone and the mountains looked like they had been filed down into ash. The scene would make anyone gasp at the hideousness. Dark clouds were gathering over the area, blocking the light and darkening the sky. The ground was gray and cracked, almost as if someone had literally broken it like glass. Whenever someone would walk over it, the tiniest dust cloud would be upturned where they stepped. It was just an ugly sight through and through. Everything was just flat and dull, and would remain that way. Now both fighters were facing each other, no special powers, no flickering flames, just the two of them. For Sasuke, the powers of Senjutsu were enough to rival his visual prowess granted by the Sharingan and Rinnegan. He had to use his key abilities to keep the powers of Sage Mode at bay, such as the Gakido, Preta Path, and the Tendo, Deva Path, but he was still overwhelmed by the power of Senjutsu. For Naruto, the Sage Mode's innate ability to empower all the user's abilities were enough to match the powers of visual jutsu, even visual prowess as strong as Sasuke's. Without their respective powers such as Rinnegan and Senjutsu, they would be equal in every way. Naruto had to resort to every one of his jutsu to combat Sasuke, his Keki Genkai and his space-time ninjutsu being key in the battle. Sasuke currently had his left eye closed and the Sharingan in his right eye was currently deactivated. However, he was still standing strong and had just barely enough chakra. He was currently holding his trademark sword in his hand, which had droplets of blood on it. Naruto was still in his Rikudo Senjutsu form, only the weaker version and without the chakra shroud, but nature energy was as much a part of him as he was to nature, although from using his special form, Rikudo Senjutsu, six-path sage technique, he was worn out and on the verge of collapse. Not even his empowered healing jutsu were enough to keep him standing, and his left arm was currently limp and unusable. Naruto only had one of his staves in his only uninjured arm. This time, the sun shall set on its final day, whispered Sasuke, and then he charged at Naruto, who performed the same action, and both met in a clash of metal and sparks, and both fighters streaked across the ground before coming to a stop, leaving trails of gray dust behind them. However, Naruto fell to the ground, his face covered in dirt, while Sasuke was standing tall and proud. Finally, the moon has shadowed the sun, and this time, I am standing, victorious, while you lay there in the ground, pathetic, spoke Sasuke as he turned to the down form of Naruto, who was breathing heavily. Naruto tried to pick himself up off the ground with his one remaining arm, but he was currently twitching his left fingers and he was still holding his staff. We finally reached our dreams. Are you going to throw that all away? Just for a petty reason? What about your family? Your children? Do they mean anything to you? Questioned Naruto as he laid on the ground. Sasuke closed his eyes in contemplation, and immediately images of his children appeared in his mind, his two sons and his daughter. Izumi, his youngest, and his only daughter, Hata, his youngest son and middle child, and Yoru, his oldest son and heir to the Uchiha clan. He loved all of them equally, just as much as he loved his older brother Itachi. They were the only family he had left, after Sasuke's wife died giving birth to Izumi. He raised them from that point onward as a single father. But still, they won't be safe in Konoha. No Uchiha shall be. What I am doing for their sake, spoke Sasuke as he walked toward the still downed form of the leader of the Senju clan. Naruto was currently tightening his left fist, only subtle actions that Sasuke wouldn't pick up on. The only way to ensure their safety is to make people fear the Uchiha. Fear and power lead to peace. That is the only way to keep my family safe and fulfill what our ancestors tried to accomplish, continued Sasuke as he was standing over Naruto. You speak like your ancestors. Have you not learned from the mistakes of our past lives? Not truly knowing the value of people. The only way to understand how the world works and what people truly think is to interact with them. We must experience what makes a person a person. Understanding others cannot be forced. It is something someone must live with, and through living it we discover that human life is precious, and I will do anything to protect it. True peace is attained through kindness, understanding, and cooperation. Monologue Naruto, in an attempt to make Sasuke change his mind. Then, just as always, you are indeed a fool, spoke Sasuke as he prepared to stab Naruto and end his life. Naruto just closed his eyes and readied himself for Sasuke's final attack. The blonde channeled a controlled amount of chakra into his one staff. Making a clicking vibration, he scrunched up his left ready to attack. Just as Sasuke thrusted his sword, Naruto got onto his feet and with his left arm and senjutsu-enhanced strength shattered Sasuke's sword with single strike, and one of the halves of his short staff fell to the ground, revealing a blade just as long as the now missing half of the staff. And with precise aim and speed, Naruto stabbed Sasuke in the side, where his left ribcage is, making the Uchiha gasp in surprise and pain and blood to leak out of his mouth. Sasuke turned his head and stared at Naruto in shock because of what had transpired, and surprise. You! Gasped Sasuke and grunted in agony at the feeling of Naruto's hidden sword in his side. I will protect my home, my people, my friends and my family. If anyone threatens the things closest to me, I'll kill them, nor will they receive my forgiveness, spoke Naruto as his eyes instinctively darkened. You're like water, Naruto, always changing, but whether changing for the best or worst depends on perspective. spoke Sasuke as his muscles turned against him and he was about to hit the ground. However, he felt something catch him before he could hit the ground. And he found his face, being cradled upon Naruto's shoulder. And he could feel Naruto's right arm around his back, supporting him. Naruto still showed compassion, even now, to his enemy. Sasuke, although he couldn't see it, he could feel the sorrow flowing off the blonde-haired sage. And while Naruto was cradling Sasuke's body, the sage's tears were silently and slowly flowing down his cheeks. He remembered everything from the time he truly met Sasuke Uchiha, to the blonde falling in love but not before having some girlfriend troubles that came with the teenage years. He remembered the birth of his first child, which was also the day his arm got broken by his wife while going through labor. He remembered it all too well. "Do you remember the day we truly met for the first time?" spoke Naruto, and at that moment, the gray clouds over the sky came plummeting down atop the two gods, washing away their blood, grime and the tears, almost as if the sky was trying to comfort them or condemn them. Didn't it truly matter at the moment? "As if it was yesterday," whispered Sasuke as he closed his eyes. "You will always be my brother." Naruto's salty tears mingled with those of the rain, washing them away as if they were washing his sins of his form. Then everything around them started disappearing. The gray, barren wasteland vanished as if ripples fell over the world, and soon they too vanished like rushing waves. And the images of Naruto and Sasuke were gone, leaving nothing but a pool of glistening water. Not even a reflection was seen. "From what I have perceived, I anticipate that the transmigration has almost concluded, and Asura and Indra shall be reborn in new contemporary arbitrators," spoke a floating man to nothing in particular, as he removed his elaborate staff from the water. The discrepancy between their personalities, psyche and temperament, likewise their capabilities, expertise and proficiency with their respective powers, also differentiates itself in many ways. Naruto Senju and Sasuke Uchiha are fascinating indeed, spoke the man as he kept staring into the water. This man, while forgotten by time and culture, was very much a god, as one can expect. He had given hope to many that thought it didn't exist. He made peace in a world consumed by war, and his own power was enough to shatter the world in two. Anybody who threatened him or his family were basically begging to be killed. The old man was so powerful, his chakra, the power built up inside of every person, that he could literally transcend time and space as if he was skateboarding down a street. The old man was a tall man even in his old age. He had deep wrinkles, a long goatee reaching down to his waist, and short, grayish-red shaggy hair, which spiked up at the top, and a chin-length braid hanging in front of his left ear. The man had pronounced eyebrow ridges with small horn-like protrusions above them, as well as a red ripple-like marking in the center of his forehead, and also gray skin that seemed to match his ancient look. He wore a white, full-length kimono with a pattern of 6 black magatama around his high collar, beneath which he wore a black necklace which was made of 6 black magatama. On the back of his kimono was a larger ripple-like marking with a pattern of 9 magatama arranged in 3 rows beneath it. This man was one of the most revered figures in history. He was literally straight out of stories and myths, the sage of the 6 paths Hagoromo Otsutsuki, son of Kaguya Otsutsuki. For millennium he had been watching his 2 sons fight their eternal struggle. One out of jealousy and hatred and the other out of defense and love. Indra and Asura, the moon and the sun, the tiger and the dragon, yin and yang. 2 opposites that cannot live without the other. Hagoromo looked up from the water and inspected the world around him for possibly the millionth time. He was surrounded by water, not the raging oceans and storm-shattering waves of the wild seas, but the calmness and serenity of a gentle lake. He looked up into the sky, inspecting the stars above him, glinting light and shining it over the darkness. He looked behind him to see a crescent moon, never moving and changing, and a bit beside it was a dim sun, shining ever so brightly, but not enough to light up the realm he was in. This plane of space was inaccessible by any who didn't have a certain chakra. This was a realm for beings who were above gods. But the beauty and majesty of it almost felt like it could make any person feel like a king. Maybe this was heaven, maybe it was just another dimension of Earth. Did it truly matter? Since he was alone, but sometimes he would get visits from other transmigrants every now and then, but all he needed was the peace and calm. Something which he wasn't afforded during his lifetime because of the endless wars and raising 2 boys, one calm, stern and focused, the other rambunctious, cheerful and exuberant. Sometimes he would give anything just to relive the times and trials of raising the 2 people he loved more than anything in the world. But now he was watching them again, reincarnated into 2 new individuals. However, what he saw in the water was only a possible fate, and from what he knew of fate, was that it was changeable, like the wind. But he knew, above all else, that the 2 boys have the capacity to end the cycle of hatred and bring about an armistice between his 2 sons, or their destinies will be that of bloodshed and hatred. I can only hope that those 2 will bring about an end to everything, spoke Hagoromo, knowing and wanting more than ever that his sons will bring about the peace he had dreamed of for so long. Konoha, the village hidden in the leaves. founded during the Warring States period by two of the world's strongest shinobi, Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha. Konoha Gakure set an example across the world, with many shinobi clans imitating that same example of the Senju and Uchiha clans. Konoha was praised for ending wars in the worlds, the most prevalent wars being the Cold War of Ashura and Indra's descendants. Konoha was the strongest and oldest village, no one could question that. Even the other major villages that had imitated Konoha would admit that, but it didn't stop them from trying to gain the upper hand over the Leaf Village. An example of their strength would be their continued victories in the Shinobi World Wars. IWA felt that they were the strongest, since Konoha was barely defending itself from their organized military. However, Konoha still won the war, even though the losses were great. This is why, as the strongest village, Konoha was blossoming with trade, profit, peaceful existence, and above all happy times. Madara and Hashirama's dream had finally become a reality. Old rivals and bitter enemies were now friends and above all family. Old prejudices were turned away in favor of friendships and good greetings. People would wish for each other's safety and hope they would return home from their missions. But above all, Ashura's ideals of cooperation and love was widely accepted within the village, an ideal that Hashirama called the will of fire. People would choose to live by it, an ideal that many believed to be an integral part of Konoha's power. The will of fire stated that the village were the people's family, and that every shinobi of Konoha would love, cherish, and fight for their village to protect it just as their ancestors had done. According to the Sandaime Hokage, the will of fire gives people the power to believe, to continue fighting despite the odds that they may never win. It was a testament to their willpower and strength. But now, peace was met, and Konoha was prospering greatly from that peace. The Third Shinobi World War had ended and the Sandaime Hokage had been chosen. Minato Namikaze, the main driving force in their victory against IWA, was chosen to take up the mantle of such an important role in the village. Minato was an exceptionally powerful shinobi that many had to flee on sight order, so their lives could be spared. Minato was one of the most gifted shinobi to have ever lived, his power easily rivaling that of the previous Hokage, maybe even surpassing his predecessor, Hiruzen Sarutobi. A man reputed as the Shinobi no Kami, God of Shinobi, the very same title that Hashirama Senju had held during his lifetime. Although there were other candidates that some felt were more suited to be Hokage, such as Orochimaru and Jiraiya of the Sannin, student of Hiruzen, Minato quickly changed the thoughts and doubts of the people through his actions as the village was ever growing stronger and more prosperous by the day under the blonde man's care. Minato, above all, was seen as one of the greatest Hokage to ever live, and in a few years during his reign, he may also receive the title of Shinobi no Kami. But still, sometimes Minato would hope that something exciting would happen every now and then, since paperwork was far too troublesome. Right now, Minato was sitting in his office, with Hiruzen and his two advisors Koharu Udatain and Hamura Midokado. They were currently discussing a topic of heated debate, one that could make or break Konoha if it happened. I can only assume that the talks with Suna went down smoothly, spoke Hiruzen, who was currently puffing on his pipe, loving the feel of tobacco filling his lungs. Konoha would benefit greatly with an alliance with Suna, and the Kazekage would also benefit from some of Konoha's resources which their village sorely needs, such as medicinal herbs and water. I spoke with the Sandaime Kazekage personally. Although he was rather blunt and impatient, he also wished for a compromise between our respective wants and needs. Although he did make snide remarks about Konoha, spoke Minato, earning a frown from Hamura and Koharu. We were able to agree to a peace and alliance treaty between our villages, one of them being that we will trade some of our resources to Suna for their benefit, just enough OS they can stabilize their situation, and the other that the respective villages would come to each other's aid, should we be attacked from other forces. Well, at least, we won't have to consider Suna our enemy for now, spoke Hamura, who was a little pleased with the outcome. But given our own wealth, I suppose we won't have to demand anything in return from the ninja of the Sand Village. But also, our own military might has been rapidly growing with the introductions of the Hagoromo clan, Iburi clan, and the Fuma clan. With the full devotion from the Kahaku clan, their ninja are already trying to prove themselves loyal to the village, most likely to gain power and status amongst their fellow clans, spoke Koharu, who was a little pleased at more ninja clans joining Konoha and therefore making it stronger. Either that or they're grateful that they now have a true home and wish to show their gratefulness by bringing in more funds for the village. But we can't deny that those clans will be essential to the power of Konoha, spoke Hamura. The Fuma clan were surrounded by enemies from all sides, and without a village backing them, they would have quickly been eliminated by Kumogakure. If we hadn't stepped in, one of the world's strongest clans would have joined another village, or their friends, 6 feet in the ground, spoke Hiruzen, and he too saw the wisdom in what Minato had done, aiding to Fuma as he was gaining their loyalty through sending shinobi to assist them. Although there were losses, they were made up for them by the Fuma clan wishing to join Konoha. The Kahaku clan were always hesitant at allowing their full might to join Konoha, but with a little charisma and a lot of persuasion, I was able to have them join us, and according to reports, they are even happy," spoke Minato with a large grin. Just smiling at the prospect of new friends seemed to make him giddy. However, the Hagoromo clan have always had bitter resentment towards the Leaf, maybe because they weren't initially invited to join the village during the Shodame's reign, or because their enemies the Senju clan helped found it, said Hamura, trying to discern the Hagoromo clan's motives in joining Konoha. "We were able to snuff out any resentment that the Hagoromo clan had towards Konoha by giving them their own compound and place within the village, a home, something which they desperately wanted in the end. That should keep them happy in the long run, but it may be a while before we have their loyalty," spoke Hiruzen, and even Minato knew he was right. Since things such as new alliances were volatile at best, he hoped that, like his previous Hokage, they could gain the Hagoromo clan's friendship. And what of the Ibiri clan? Given their weak bodies and unstable but yet powerful Keki Genkai, something must have been worked out, questioned Koharu, over the Yandame's actions. "Don't worry about the Ibiri, I know full well of what ails them, and I have one of the best working on their problem," reassured Minato as he turned around in his chair slightly. "May I ask who?" queried Hamura, which made Hiruzen smile and Minato to grin slightly. "Well, you know, I just asked Tsunade for a few favors and she was willing to come back," spoke Minato, making Hamura and Koharu gasp in surprise. "She's back in the village, how? Why? I thought she would never return," spoke Hamura in shock at what he had just heard. "She's not resuming her shinobi duties, but I was able to work out a compromise. She'll instead be taking control and working at the hospital, treating house shinobi and civilians. Although she did say that she had lost faith in her medical skill, well, let's just say she took a gamble and lost," spoke Minato with a small grin. At the hospital, Tsunade, the greatest kunoichi in the world, was currently caring to an injured child who had broken her arm when trying to rescue her pet cat from a tree. The child had come in screaming and crying, frightened for her arm which was throbbing in pain. Tsunade spent a good 10 minutes trying to calm the poor girl down so she could treat her injury. She had to sing a lullaby that her father once sang to her when she was a little girl. The child was only 4 years old, but the busted blonde could at least give it a try. And to her own surprise, the child had calmed down by the time Tsunade had reached the 3rd verse. She then applied medical ninjutsu and was able to repair the damage to the girl's arm. "There you go," said Tsunade softly as she was wrapping a bandage around the small girl's arm. Tsunade then turned to the mother of the girl, who had a look of relief and happiness on her face. "All you have to do is change the bandages weekly for 3 weeks, other than that, she'll be just fine," spoke Tsunade with a small smile. "Thank you, Tsunade-sama," said the mother, taking her daughter's hand in her own. "Bye-bye, miss," said the little, waving at Tsunade, who waved back with a small smile. Things had certainly changed for Tsunade when she came back to the village. Well, it was more like Minato dragging Hias back to her home and knocking some sense into her. When Minato had first appeared to her at some gambling den where, of course, she was gambling her money away and getting herself dead drunk on sake, he asked her to return to the village and to serve as its chief medic and advise the other medics, and among other things, she had explained to him that she was no more or less interested in going back to Konoha than to give away all her money for any reason other than gambling. But knowing Minato ever since his childhood, since her former teammate Jiraiya had introduced her to Minato and his own teammates, she knew that the blonde man was as determined as you can get, so for a week he traveled with her, well, more like stalked her until he got his answer. Every day she would wake up and she would see Minato waiting for her answer. If only she could flatten him like a bulldozer, but she knew that would get her in more trouble than she was worth. Eventually he came up with a compromise. Well, technically it was the same question he was asking her. She said right to his face that she would never return as a shinobi of Konoha, but Minato retorted with the fact that he just asked her to be the head medic and not a shinobi on the front lines or performing missions and such. She felt so stupid that she didn't ask for any other details on what Minato wanted. But what she didn't know was the blonde man's ulterior motive in asking her to return. Minato was a shrewd man who never did anything without a clear purpose. He knew that if Tsunade would return to being a medic, then maybe she could find solace and healing through the physical healing of others. Although she didn't answer him after finding out what he really wanted, he still had to drag her back to the village. So now here she was, and she had to say that maybe returning to Konoha was actually a good idea. It gave her happiness to know that she was bringing happiness to others through simply healing cuts and bruises to saving lives and repairing mortal injuries. Sometimes she would just watch the tears of relief trail down people's faces knowing that their loved ones were still with them. This was one of the reasons to why she became a medic of renown, one to follow and be like her legendary grandfather, who was reputed to be the greatest medic in the world, capable of healing himself and others without forming seals, they just to be in his presence to be healed. And she would admit in a heartbeat that she was nowhere near his level, but she was able to replicate his abilities through various means such as her summonings and her Byakugo no In, strength of 100 seal. The other reason was to make people happy, seeing their smiles and joyous laughs. A light would warm up in her, like a small sun, a heartbeat. Life was indeed cruel, but it could also be the greatest thing in the world. But creating life, yourself, that may be one of the most perfect things in the world. When she looked back on her life, Tsunade knew that she had missed out on so many things. But the one she felt the most remorse for was, being a mother. She wanted to be one so much, she wanted to love a child and that child to love her unconditionally in return. The Senju line would die with her, the last of the mighty clan. Would her parents, her grandparents be disappointed in her for not continuing the clan of 1,000 hands? But she didn't care, she was the last Senju, and she would do what she wanted. She heard a knock that snapped her out of her thoughts. "Tsunade-sama?" said a voice. The blonde-haired Senju turned her head to see her apprentice, the niece of her late lover Dan. Shizen. That was one person she took with her when Dan died, Shizen, his only living relative. Dan's sister had died on a mission and Shizen's father died before she was born, leaving Dan to care for her as the last of her family. But when Dan died, Tsunade took it upon herself to raise Shizen, who loyally followed her as her student and attendant. Even though the black-haired girl would become exasperated with her master's gambling habits. "Tswanda-sama, the yondaime is here to see you," spoke Shizen, who was currently holding several files and folders in her hand. "Fine, send him in." Shizen spoke Tsunade, a little depressed since she was broken from her thoughts. Tsunade let her thoughts travel again, but this time to Minato. She didn't know what to think of the man, but she would say that she was thankful to him for bringing her back to Konoha. She then saw Minato, her yondaime, walk into her office, with that bright smile and his golden hair bouncing around. "Tsunade, how is the progress on the Ibiri's Keki Genkai?" asked Minato happily as he entered the busty blonde-haired woman's office. Although she was irked that he just barged into her office without a care in the world, he could at least knock. Maybe if she threw a mug at him, that would teach him a lesson. "The Ibiri's Keki Genkai is like nothing I have seen before. It's highly unstable and uncontrollable. From research, it seems that the Keki Genkai manifests itself in the younger generations among the clan and is seemingly stronger too. It works on a similar basis to the Hozuki clan, where their shinobi can transform their bodies into water," spoke Tsunade as she took out a clipboard that held the information on the Ibiri clan. "My research seems to suggest that the only way to stabilize the Keki Genkai is through the use of advanced and powerful Fuinjutsu, and this seal would also have the effect of returning the Ibiri's dispersed form and coalesce it back into a solid form. As usually the case in the clan, is that dispersion equals death. Although they wouldn't be the best opponents against wind users, this Fuinjutsu must work in a way that returns the dispersed chakra back into the solid body." "Well, I can probably figure out a way, although I will have to utilize research of my own and with some help from Kushina," said Minato while rubbing his head nervously. "Kushina? Are you talking about that cute, fiery redhead that used to scream about becoming Hokage to the entire world?" questioned Tsunade as she raised her eyebrow at her Hokage. "The one and the same," spoke Minato with a forced smile and some sweat rolling down his neck. However, after years of being a kunoichi and having expertise in psychology, Tsunade could immediately tell that something was bothering the Hokage. Of course, it was like someone shoved a neon sign in her face. "What happened between you two? The last time I heard, you two were hitting it off," queried Tsunade as she took out a sake bottle from one of her drawers and 2 cups. "Well, I'd rather not say, it's a bit too personal," said Minato, obviously feeling uncomfortable about the wild thing. "Sit down, this is obviously going to take a while," spoke Tsunade, already pouring the sake into the cup. "I'm really sorry, but really I can't," said Minato, crouching a little and holding his hands out in front of him. "Sit," ordered Son, releasing a small amount of killing intent at the Hokage. Minato deflated a little and breathed a heavy sigh before drooping down into a chair opposite Tsunade, where he grasped the small cup in his hand. "So what's going on with you two? Really?" "Well, how can I say this? I proposed to Kushina," said Minato, whose face took a passive expression. "Then, why are you moping around like you are?" "It's not like she said no," said Tsunade, taking a swig of her sake. However, seeing Minato's solemn face only confirmed Tsunade's worst and last thoughts. "She really did say no. I even had the ring ready and everything. I proposed to her on the Hokage Tower, everything was perfect, but she said no and ran off," confessed Minato as he himself took a swig of sake and then gestured for Tsunade to pour some more sake. "She didn't even give me a good reason why she said no." "I'm sorry, I don't think I can emphasize with something like that," spoke Tsunade, showing genuine care for the golden blonde in front of her, which made Minato grin a little. "But still, what's done is done, don't beat yourself up over it, then plenty of birds in the sky. I'm sure you may find someone else, if not just get over Kushina and focus on your Hokage duties," said Tsunade, providing some advice for the young Kage. "May you be one of those birds in the sky?" playfully questioned Minato, now a little happier at hearing Tsunade's advice. "Haha, it will be 1,000 years before that happens. Besides, as if you can get your hands on this," said Tsunade, gesturing to her whole body, making Minato laugh a little. And so without saying anything, they continued to drink their troubles away, one bottle after the other. And soon, without realizing it, both were completely drunk, their movements, thoughts and actions were uncontrollable. "What was it you said, Tsunade, about getting my hands on you?" spoke a slurred Minato as he took another swig of alcohol. "I said something like that. Maybe you can try if you like," spoke Tsunade with a hint of allure in her voice and revealing some of her ample bosom to her fellow blonde. Primal instincts, and the laws of nature coming over Minato, he swiftly pinned Tsunade to her desk and quickly stripped her of her clothes, and both began to experience the pleasures of their actions and their consequences. A few hours later, and for some unknown and yet magical reason, no one seemed to disturb them during their exercise. Light shone through the window of Tsunade's office, hitting her in the face, making her groan in complaint. She opened her eyes wearily, and was blinded by the rays of the sun. She tried to sit herself up only for a massive headache to hit her, as if running into a brick wall. She then noticed that she was bare naked. The only thing seemingly covering her modesty was her green haori that was just barely covering her sacred places. She searched around her room, and some of her items in her office were scrambled about and were in odd places. She then checked herself over to find that her lipstick was smudged, her hair was disheveled, and all the other things you will find after a certain practice. Her brow then landed on a bare back that was sitting a bit away from her. She could tell it was a male because of the body shape, and he had a coat with red flame motifs covering his own modesty, and he had golden sun hair that could. "Oh my God," thought Tsunade, regaining her memory over what had transpired. There were questions thrown back and forth, drinking and lust. She should chide herself for being so foolish and unprofessional. It all came to her, like a wave crashing down upon her. She had just slept with the Yondaime Hokage. She did what any hormonal fangirl or fear-stricken woman would do. She screamed. Screamed Tsunade, probably loud enough for the entire village to hear. The high volume of her voice did the job in waking her companion, who jolted from his sleep and was met with a splitting headache and a mortified, busted blonde-haired woman. "Tsunade? What are you doing in my house?" asked Minato with squinted eyes while rubbing his blonde hair. "We're not in your house, you're in my office," grunted Tsunade with flames flickering off her form. "Really? Though what happened after we got drunk?" questioned Minato as he got off the ground while still shielding himself with his coat. "You took advantage of me when I was drunk," shouted Tsunade at the top of her lungs while pointing an accusating finger at her Hokage. "I resent that accusation," shouted back Minato. "But you don't deny it," replied Tsunade, which made Minato stop and pause to think about what she said. Before he could actually say anything, he saw a book flying towards his face, and if it wasn't for his great speed it would have smacked him right in the face. He then saw a pencil pot also fly towards him, and he ducked at that also. He then looked up to see Tsunade standing up, still shielding herself with her haori, and just randomly and blindly throwing things at him, while flames of female fury were licking themselves off her form. He was dodging and ducking, trying not to be hit by the books, pencils, chairs, and any weapons Tsunade had on her, while also trying to get changed into his clothes. 2 months later, nothing had really changed for Tsunade or Minato. Although things were incredibly awkward between the two of them, they had told no one what had transpired, and it seems that no one would find out. They had also successfully stabilized the Iburi's Keki Genkai, where they could reform even if their form was dispersed by wind, through powerful chakra-based seals. And right now, everyone was happy in the Hidden Leaf Village. It almost seemed as if nothing could go wrong. Tsunade was currently in her office, writing off reports for her patients. It had been 2 months since that incident, and even Tsunade knew that something was wrong. She had been getting dizzy, nauseous, sometimes she would nearly faint. She knew of one of two things she was experiencing, and she only hoped it wasn't what she thought it was, and if so, it would cause a huge scandal in the village, maybe some trouble outside of it also. She was about to sign another document before a wave of nausea washed over her. Quickly reacted, she only had a split second before she threw up in the bin, vomiting up the breakfast she ate that morning. Being a medic, she knew what it was. She only hoped that she wasn't what she dreaded. A few hours later, Tsunade had met with Shizen because she was the only person she trusted with such delicate knowledge. So now Tsunade was wearing a hospital gown and was having a medical checkup being performed by Shizen. This checkup was to confirm or deny what Tsunade had been fearing for the past 2 months. Shizen was sending medical chakra into Tsunade's navel, searching for the thing which would make sense of everything. And there Shizen found it, a small but fast-beating pulse. Then it was true. Shizen had first thought that Tsunade was anemic, but no, it wasn't as simple as that. "Congratulations, Tsunade-sama, you're going to be a mother," spoke softly and a little happy at the prospect, believing that her master can finally achieve happiness in her life by raising another. Tsunade got up into a sitting position, digesting the news she had just been given. On one hand, she was unbelievably angry at Minato for knocking her up. She felt like she had to march over to the Hokage Tower and make the blonde-haired man into a human pretzel and would live the rest of his life eating through a tube. while on the other hand she felt like she should break down and cry, not in sadness or regret but over sheer happiness. She finally got what she wanted the entire time, although she was slightly disappointed that the father of her child wasn't her late lover, Dan. But it changed very little as it was her child, a life she helped to create. She could be a mother, maybe she could finally be happy. But this also created a certain problem. Telling the father. Knowing Minato, he might just faint at the news. But right now, the feeling she was feeling most was most likely anger. So now she was stomping towards the Hokage tower, intent on confronting the father of her child. Shizen was trying to calm Tsunade, with Tsunade's pet pig Taunton also trying to comfort her master. However, it seems as if Tsunade was on autopilot. Many civilians who were in her way started clearing the area as the woman's footsteps were shaking the ground around everyone, making some seek shelter from the wrathful Senju survivor. One such individual being the Uchiha matriarch Mikoto Uchiha, who only stared in surprise seeing Senju leader stomping away through the village, and you could clearly see the large belly she had, symbolizing that she was with child the same as Tsunade. However, Mikoto's good sense got the better of her and decided to stay out of Tsunade's way. Minato was currently in his office speaking with Hiruzen, Koharu and Hamura, and were discussing their recently successful missions with the village's new clans. Hamura and Koharu especially were happy since this only made the village stronger, and it seemed like something that their shadowy friend of theirs would enjoy. So Minato, have you heard the requests we have been receiving to heal the Kurama clan's new heir, Murakumo's daughter, Yakumo Kurama, who had just been recently born? Yes, apparently the Kurama heiress, Yakumo, was born with a weak body that prohibits the bodily requirements of being a shinobi. However, there may be a way to fix that, if we have Tsunade to look into it. Spoke Minato, telling his advisors of his plans. That would be acceptable, given her medical mastery, said Hamura, agreeing with Minato on the subject. Minato reached for his cup of water which was by his side, but when he was about to grasp it, the cup shook ever so slightly and it shook again, the water in the cup becoming disturbed. Then he felt a sharp sting in his back. It didn't hurt, but he knew that it was quite an ominous feeling and his body froze almost as if it was encased in ice. Hiruzen, seeing Minato pause, knew that something was coming, and that something was gunning for Minato specifically. They then felt the entire office shake. Things milling about the room were crashing to the floor and shaking spontaneously. All three higher-ups turned their heads to the closed doors of the Hokage office, and the shaking and the giant pulses only grew in size and strength. They could hear muffled talk from a high-pitched voice and some winking, but the voices had little to no effect on the miniature earthquakes shaking through the tower. And suddenly the pulsing stopped, and nothing could be heard or felt through the office. But all that changed when the door to the Hokage office went flying off its hinges and straight over the heads of the people in the room, who were currently gaping like fish out of water at what was happening. However, Minato was sweating incredibly at the sight before his eyes. An amazingly irate Tsunade with glowing red eyes and black flames of the power known as female fury flickering off her, with what appeared to be a demonic face being made from the flames, whose eyes were currently boring into those of Minato, who he briefly mistook for death at the moment. Shizen and Taunton meanwhile were peeking on the side of the wall, only hoping that everyone would walk, mostly unscathed, from this event. Regaining his pride and stoic Hokage demeanor, Minato knew that he would have to confront Tsunade, even if it might kill him. Tsunade, can this wait? I'm currently meeting with my advisors, spoke Minato, ignoring everything around him and the numerous cracks and holes in the walls and corridors of his tower, and the broken window along with his now missing door. I need to talk to you, said Tsunade, who was currently grinding her teeth, obviously trying not to do something that would cause an insurmountable amount of trouble. Okay, talk, said Minato, and quietly gestured to his ANBU that protected him to stand down, so they probably wouldn't die or lose some limbs in the process. In private, said Tsunade, crossing her arms under her bust. I'm sorry, Tsunade, but we are having a necessary meeting as to how the village will be adjusting to the new arrivals of the recent clans joining our village, spoke Hiruzen as he puffed on his pipe. Well then, I guess I have to say it out loud, you knocked me up, said Tsunade bluntly to Minato, whose mind failed to compute what she just said, while Koharu and Hamura's jaws dropped to the ground, utterly flabbergasted at what she just said. Hiruzen gave every ounce of his willpower not to burst out laughing at the faces of Hamura and Koharu or fainting after hearing that his student was pregnant with his successor's child. However, Tsunade barely hid her anger at the expressions the three had, excluding Hiruzen. She didn't want to tell Koharu and Hamura, but since they were having such an important meeting that they had to be there when she dropped the news. But there must be a mistake, I mean, how could we? Said Minato, completely overcome by the news. It's called sex, it's usually how babies are made, right? Replied Tsunade sarcastically. Right now, from what Minato said, it didn't seem like he wanted to be the father of her child, he possibly didn't want anything to with it. Ah, I see, said Minato, who was looking down at the ground. Nobody could see his expression, and his face was shadowed. Yondaime? Questioned Koharu, who saw the state her leader was in. Are you going to abort it? asked Minato with a hint of sincerity. But little did he know that his words were conveying the wrong feelings to what he had. Abort it? You mean kill it before it even has a chance to live? Whispered Tsunade, and of course being pregnant it means she of course was susceptible to hormones and mood swings where even the smallest amount of words can turn an innocent butterfly into a raging hornet. Soon small amounts of tears began dripping off her cheeks. Just the mere thought of killing her baby just seemed to fill with nothing but misery. She had been carrying the small being inside of her for 2 months now, and she would admit it as if she was admitting the tragedies in her life. That she loved her unborn child more than anything in the world. If you think I'm going to kill this baby, even if you don't want it, then don't be a part of its life, as I will not kill it just because it's convenient for you. Hissed Tsunade, her anger growing at the blonde Hokage like a rising flame. No, whispered Minato, and now Tsunade could now see tears falling down his face. I don't want you to abort. To be truthful, I'm happy. Happier than I've ever been. Yes, I'm shocked, but, well, maybe this can work out. Said Minato, raising his head, looking Tsunade straight into her eyes. Because I'm going to be father. And with those few words, Swanda's doubts and anger quickly subsided and was replaced with relief, knowing that Minato won't abandon the child. This is truly tremendous news. A Senju heir at last. Spoke a voice which made a cold chill run down the spine of everyone in the room. All 5 occupants looked behind them to see Danzo Shimura, standing in front of Shizen, while the black-haired girl looked uneasy. Danzo, said Minato carefully. Yondaime, replied the bandaged man. How long have you been skulking there, Danzo? Questioned Hyuzen, adopting a dangerous look in his eye. Just enough to understand the situation, responded the rude commander. I was on my way to the tower. While I was walking through the halls I noticed that nearly all of them had large cracks and holes in it, and when I saw Tsunade's apprentice it confirmed my beliefs. Spoke Danzo more politely than what he was known for saying. However, the news of such a thing, it's truly pleasing. Spoke Danzo, obviously telling the truth to what he was spouting. A child of the most powerful and feared clan in the world, whose father just happens to be the most powerful and feared man in the world, already confirms the child's talent and potential. Said Danzo, talking about Minato and Tsunade's child as if it was a thing and not a person. I don't see how such a thing would involve you, Danzo. Said Hamura, wondering on what Danzo's plans were, as the Senju clan's hopes and dreams now rest on this child, since he found unlikely that Minato and Tsunade would have any more children. It already does, as I have had my root agents spread word throughout the village informing the people and shinobi that one of their 2 founding clans will continue to live. I think you can already hear the cries of joy from within this room. Said Danzo, making Minato and Tsunade grit their teeth and rage to fuel their eyes, as that certain information was incredibly personal and scandalous. Hiruzen, hearing what Danzo had done, stood up from his chair and looked the black-haired man in the eye. You had little right to do that, Danzo. How dare you leak such personal news, even before the parents were comfortable enough to share them? Berated Hiruzen at his old friend. It is for the good of the village and the good of the people to know that the Shodaime will have a living legacy. Spoke Danzo, trying to justify his reasons for leaking the information. I have to agree with Hiruzen on this matter. The villagers would have found out eventually, but this wasn't the right time for it. It may also cause an overwhelming amount of trouble for the other villages who might learn of this information, and add to the fact that Tsunade was uncomfortable even telling the father. I doubt she also wouldn't be comfortable having everyone in the village know that she is with child. Said Koharu, supporting the Senju leader and the Hokage. Also, this situation is delicate. It must be handled with tact, otherwise the wild thing may be blown out of proportion. And the last thing we need is to stress Tsunade while she is carrying an important package. Also, we could have just revealed that Tsunade is pregnant and withhold the information of the Yondaime being the father. Things may have been easier, but with you leaking this information, the other villages may take violent action. They may feel threatened by the arrival of a new Senju in the world, one with great potential, such as Kumo. Or will take militaristic movements against Konoha for what Minato did during the war and the hundreds of shinobi he slaughtered. I know that Inoki the Sandaime Tsuchikage will not take this news tenderly. Said Hamura, relaying the consequences of everyone's actions. Then so be it. I will have my root agents monitor Tsunade and protect her from threats of need be until the heir is born. Responded Danzo, not caring for the other village's intentions but his own. He was currently plotting something devious, and I'm pretty sure you all know what he wants by now. And still Shizen has said nothing to contribute to this entire conversation. Enough! Shouted Tsunade, not liking how the conversation was mainly revolving around her, and yet no one seems to care what she thought. First of all, I'm not helpless, I'm pregnant. It doesn't make me any more dangerous than how I was before I got knocked up. And I don't want your drones following me around and reporting my every move to you. I agree with Tsunade, said Minato, as he didn't like the idea of Danzo's men spying on Tsunade 24/7. Besides, I think there is someone much more suited for the job at protecting Tsunade. I don't need protection, grunted Tsunade with her arms still crossed under her bust. You will need protection when you're 9 months pregnant, and can't move as well as you used to. Deadpan Minato, to which Tsunade had no retort. Please come out, Kakashi, said Minato, where a boy no older than 13 appeared wearing the standard gear of the ANBU Black Ops and a mask that resembled a dog's face. I'm pretty sure you know of everything, correct? Queried Minato, where the young ANBU member nodded. Do you accept this mission? Asked Minato with a slightly stern gaze as he was assigning Kakashi to protect his unborn child, to which Kakashi nodded again, symbolizing his acceptance, and quickly disappeared from sight. He's a talkative one, commented Tsunade. Although she was a little irked that she was being watched as if she was a fragile doll, she was relieved that it was someone Minato trusted and not any of Danzo's men. Kakashi can be trusted, he's just going through a few troubling things, that's all, assured Minato, easing some of Tsunade's doubts. Well, given all the excitement that's happened today, I think should head back to my compound. I'm getting really tired, not sure if it's from the pregnancy or something else, said Tsunade, who was walking out of the room but not before casting a suspicious eye on Danzo. Tsunade bid goodbye to her sensei and left the Hokage Tower with Shizen and her pet pig Tonton in tow. Now, all we need is to fix the damages to Hokage Tower that Tsunade made, said Hiruzen, casting a small grin which made everyone sigh at the broken glass and doors and holes in the walls that Tsunade created. It had been a month since the news of Tsunade falling pregnant was revealed to the village because of Danzo's meddling in affairs that were not his own. Through his root agents who had spread word through the village in the form of a rumor, which the people spread the news to others and others until the entire village knew about Tsunade's pregnancy. What was even worse was the fact that they also knew that Minato was the father. There was great celebration in the village, with people celebrating this joyous news and the soon-to-be-born child of the Tsun Senju and Minato Namikaze. People were throwing parties and having drinking games, with even a festival celebrating the revival of the Senju clan, the founding clan of Konoha. Tsunade was even asked to speak at the festival, which she was nervous about and a little embarrassed at how her child was conceived, although she was still uncomfortable about the wild thing. While on the other hand, it was a huge scandal in the village, many people mainly were outraged at the irresponsibility of Tsunade and Minato, who were healthy role models to the village's children. Some parents were afraid that their own children might pick up the Senju parents' habits, Tsunade's drinking and gambling habits, and Minato's jutsu's silly names. Although they could do little to sway people's minds, as most people thought that they were raging and bitching about something that didn't really matter. However, the overall response to the news was generally positive, with many civilians, shinobi and kunoichi, saying congratulations to the parents for bringing such an important life to the village. During that month, Tsunade was still working at the hospital tending to the wounded ninja that would return from both successful and failed missions, either with relatively minor wounds or life-threatening ones that would take hours to save them. Tsunade was still quite stubborn about working at the hospital, seemingly gaining an overall moral duty to help those that needed help and bring happiness to those that wanted it. Even now, Tsunade would still smile herself at the happy faces that would walk away from the hospital with their loved one in tow. If she was honest, very honest, she was excited by the prospect of walking out of the hospital with her baby in her arms. She wondered briefly what her child would be like, both in appearance and personality. Sometimes she would daydream about walking with her baby through a field of flowers while they laughed, and she laughed with it. She wondered what it would be like if it was a girl. Would they have her creamy blonde hair with Minato's sapphire eyes, while the child would be more like Minato, with his calmness and collected demeanor, with some of his playfulness and maturity, while also remaining humble throughout their life? Or a boy with Minato's hair and Tsunade's amber eyes, while the boy would take after her personality, cheerful and exuberant, but always displaying a tough attitude to those around them, with a little hyperactivity in there too, who would take risks from time to time. She wanted that so badly, but she wouldn't know what the baby would be like until it was born. Her relationship with Minato, which was only just friends, was still stable. She didn't want to tear his face off each moment he walked into her presence, but so long as they could stand each other's presences, everything would be fine. In fact, Minato was happy when he would visit her once a week to check up on her and the baby. Of course, since he was Hokage, he was busy doing, well, Hokage stuff really, but he still wanted to be a part of their child's life, although there was some uproar regarding who would have parental custody of the baby. It was settled that Tsunade would have custody, and the baby would take her clan name of Senju, which Minato agreed to, well, the clan name of course, but he still had to butt horns with her regarding the custody. She had made it quite clear that she was the one carrying the baby, she was the one that would go through all the pain to bring it into the world, so therefore she won the argument. Minato had even gone as far to write a will should he ever die. Because even today there were still people who wanted Minato's head at their feet for what he did to them and their families during the war. In the will it stated that Naruto would inherit everything that belonged to Minato, including jutsu, money, and property, and the baby would inherit all of it when they turned 16. Minato had also set up a trust fund for Tsunade and their baby so they would be able to look after themselves before, during and after the birth, to which Tsunade was thankful for. Shizun had also been helping around. She was quiet, happy, lending a hand and making the busted blonde-haired woman's life easier and more comfortable and less stress-free, since that was the last thing she needed. Even Minato had stressed the fact that Tsunade should stress less and be happy, which would cause Tsunade to become stressed, and yelling would ensure. Her former teacher, the Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, would visit her and make sure she was well. Hiruzen was the closest thing to a father Tsunade had since her own father died during the First Shinobi World War, leaving her mother a widow and pregnant with her younger brother Nawaki, who would die at the beginning of the Second Shinobi World War, and her mother died a few years after Nawaki's birth, also during the First Shinobi World War. Much of her clan, the Senju clan, died during that war. Their numbers and power were greatly reduced, and many were eager to pounce on the void left by the Senju deaths, mainly the Hyuga clan, who were very eager to claim power within the village. Tsunade wondered what would become of the other clans, such as the Uchiha and Hagoromo clans, who were old enemies of the Senju clan. She wondered briefly if they would be a threat to her baby and herself, but she doubted that, as many of the clans were at least friendly with one another. But there was one thing she knew that was concrete evidence, was the fact that Danzo would never allow her to leave the village with the new Senju heir. She knew that old Badger was planning something, but she didn't know, as trying to understand Danzo's mind was like trying to find your way out of a twisting and tricky maze. It was near impossible. But she was still expecting Danzo's to do something shady, for which he was known for. In a dark underground headquarters, where all manner of shady things would occur, was a bandaged man sitting within his office, thinking about the new developments to the village. This man was an incredibly dangerous and an amazingly deceptive individual by the name of Danzo Shimura, the Shinobi no Yami, Darkness of the Shinobi, a man who had ideals that were archaic and draconian in nature and age. He merely believed that shinobi were tools and weapons to be used and tossed aside when they lost their use. He forced those under his command to kill those who were important to them and loved above all, to which he called training, where the shinobis would suppress their emotion, ensuring not to feel the slightest hesitation in ending one's life. They didn't feel any remorse, sorrow, or sympathy. To them all that mattered was the mission, either complete it or die. That was the code that the organization root would use. They copied the old graduation program of Kiri, by killing others so to become strong and survive. Danzo's training and methods were unknown to many, even the Hokage to which he followed under. However, Danzo's own root soldiers were loyal to him and him alone. They were puppets, and he was the puppet master pulling the strings. He remembered a time when he thought he was going to be Hokage, the leader of the village. In Danzo's mind, only he was fit to be Hokage, and that was it. He believed that only he had the strength and the will to lead the village and abandon the ideals of the Senju clan, who installed the will of fire into the village. Danzo believed that only through dominating strength and the use of fear through power would ensure the village's safety and future, while those under the thumb of the will of fire would eventually lead the village into ruin. However, Danzo knew that he himself was old, and he would not live forever. Only he could change the world for the better. Only he was capable and uniting the shinobi world. Well, at least in his mind. However, Danzo may have found the perfect candidate to shape the world and be a true Hokage once he passed. The unborn child of the Yondaime and Tsunade, Danzo was cunning, oh so very cunning. He took advantage of the news of Tsunade being pregnant by spreading the information through the village so to limit Tsunade's movements within the village and to ensure that she would never leave the village with the child in tow. He also wanted his root agents to guard Tsunade while the child grew inside of her. Although that attempt was foiled when Minato stepped in and appointed his student, Kakashi Hatake, to care for the well-being of the Senju leader. However, that was a minor bump in the road. When the due date for the baby was coming, Danzo will arrange for midwives of his choosing to oversee the birth of the baby. And when it was born, he would rip it away from its mother's arms and raise it to be a true shinobi. He knew of the power and influence in the village the child would have when it was older. That's why he wanted the baby under his thumb, and to accept his ideals were the right ideals. He only wants what is best for Konoha, and the best way to protect Konoha was to ensure that the child was a replica of himself, where they would be cold, calculating, and to never compromise for the good of Konoha. Although Hiruzen may also be a problem. The Sandaime was above all smart, and he was already suspecting Danzo to be planning something that would only benefit the root leader. Hiruzen above all was not afraid of putting Danzo in his place, but was too soft-hearted to do anything in the long term. Minato also suspected Danzo. He would be the hardest to fool since the man was shrewd and could see through many lies and deceit. He suspected that Minato already knew of what Danzo was planning and how it involved his child. Danzo would admit that he was little match for the Yondaime. The bandaged man would have to play his cards carefully if he was going to rip away the Senju heir. But Danzo had time on his side. In 6 months the baby would be born, and the elder had enough time to make his plans come to fruition. But the power the child may have is what interested Danzo the most. A powerful lineage of talented shinobi were coursing through the blood of the unborn child. Danzo was both excited and threatened by its mere presence, since the baby could be a harbinger of the village's end or the savior the village hidden in the leaves required. The blood of the most powerful and feared clan in the world and the sum of the most powerful shinobi in the world ensured the talent and potential the child would have. The mere thought made Danzo shiver in delight, which was a scary thing in itself. With the bandaged man's help, the Senju clan would return to its former glory and power, with Danzo spearheading the clan from the shadows. The legacy of the Shodame and the Yondame would be in the safe hands of Danzo and any other child born to that clan. To be truthful, Danzo was hoping for a boy, so the boy could impregnate multiple women at once, so to produce more clan members faster, and the mothers would come from his own root organization, as strong mothers would ensure strong children also. Everything would go according to plan, so long as there was little meddling. Minato was sitting in his office writing out and confirming reports and sending out missions. Today, however, was a little special. He received a petition from the head of the Kurama clan, Murakumo Kurama, enlisting aid for his daughter, Yakumo, to be healed. Because of her weak and frail body that would limit her potential as a ninja, Minato already had someone in mind who could help. They were about to walk through the door any minute, and he could already sense the chakra signature outside his door with what felt like another chakra signature within that signature. When the door opened, it revealed Tsunade wearing her normal attire of a green haori over a sleeveless blouse and dark pants and high heels, and if one was to look closely you could see the small baby bump she had, revealing the life she was carrying inside of her. "Tsunade, good of you to come," said Minato professionally, to which his blonde significant other nodded too. Minato also noticed that Shizen had joined her, probably to help with the medical examination which would be performed on Yakumo. Minato could also sense Kakashi's presence trailing Tsunade's also. He had assigned the young ANBU member to safeguard Tsunade when he could not, since as the days passed by Tsunade would become less and less formidable because of growing child within her which would limit her mobility. "Please tell me what we're doing again," said Tsunade, as when Minato told her of the Kurama medical examination it sort of went through one ear and out the other. At the time she was currently gorging herself on some food she had a craving for. It was a common symptom of pregnancy to have a certain fetish for a food you may or may never have liked. That time it was sushi, lots of sushi. "The head of the clan Murakumo Kurama has requested that we perform a medical examination on their sick daughter, Yakumo Kurama. Apparently she was born with a weak and frail body that limits her potential," spoke Minato, informing Tsunade of their medical subject. "Why? With such a body, she may never have the chance to be a shinobi, even Might Guy, father of Might Guy, who could never perform ninjutsu or genjutsu, so he trained his body to perfect physical condition and trained in mostly taijutsu. He later died when he faced the 7 shinobi swordsmen of the mist trying to protect his son. But with Yakumo's body she may never have the ability to be a kunoichi, as genjutsu masters could easily break free from genjutsu, or someone who was adept at it would easily kill Yakumo if she was ever faced in that situation," questioned Swanda as she recounted the death of Might Dai, who was excellent at taijutsu because there was no limit to taijutsu, but with genjutsu it was different. "From what Murakumo told me is that his daughter, Yakumo, has been born with a powerful Keki Genkai, allowing her to kill people with genjutsu by causing the brain to believe that what is happening to them is real and not an illusion as it usually is, which results in brain death. Yakumo was born with the full extent of this Keki Genkai, and that has given Murakumo hope that she can become a powerful shinobi with genjutsu alone," informed Minato, which still made Tsunade doubt Yakumo's future skill. Furthermore, the Kurama clan were once a powerful clan that held great influence in the village. However, their numbers and power have been greatly reduced over the years, and not one of their shinobi is a jonin. Their hopes and dreams lie with Yakumo, who can probably bring the clan's power and influence back because of her Keki Genkai. Tsunade sighed heavily, although she still believed that it was pointless to do this, as she believed that the still month-old Yakumo Kurama could become a formidable shinobi in her own right was preposterous because of her weak body. But she would do it because she would go to the edge of the earth to help her own child. "Fine, let's go and get this over with," said Tsunade, crossing her arms underneath her sizable bust. Minato smiled and nodded to her, where both he, Tsunade, Shizen and the hidden Kakashi traveled to the Kurama clan compound. The walk there was relatively quiet. Nothing was really talked about during the walk, and no one seemed to want to start a conversation. Shizen was a little nervous, since it felt like Tsunade and Minato would turn around and would start yelling at each other for no reason at all. But everything changed when Tsunade diverted from the group and made a beeline toward a ramen bar that was a little to their right. Shizuin and Minato were too focused on the walking to notice the fact that Tsunade was actually missing. When Minato finally noticed that the mother of his child was missing, he became a depraved mess and started sweating profusely while his eyes were wide and white. Shizen was in a similar situation but was much more composed about it. The two spent a good 5 minutes looking for their traveling companion when they heard a familiar voice that sounded stuffed, ordering another bowl. They both looked to their right to see Swanda sitting on a stool at a bar, with flaps. They also noticed that it was a ramen bar which seemed to sell all types of ramen. And there she was, the blonde-busted, pregnant woman, gulping down noodles with 3 empty bowls already beside her. "Another!" shouted Tsunade, with noodles stuffed in her mouth and chopsticks in her hands. Minato seemed to face fault at the woman, and he wondered how long this would take, but knowing it was better to wait for Tsunade to finish or suffer her wrathful mood swings. So he sat down next to her and watched her while she gulped down the noodles with Shizen sitting next to him. Hours later, Tsunade had yet to finish eating her ramen with now 4 stacks of empty bowls lying around her. She had seemingly demolished all the ramen that was given to her and more, and she still looked like she was ready for more. She had just finished another ramen bowl, which was her 40th one, and ordered another. But the ramen cook, who was a middle-aged man wearing a white robe and a chef's hat, was staring at her with his arms crossed and a bewildered look on his face. "I'm sorry, miss, but you just ate all our ingredients, and we'll have to go and buy some more, which will take a couple of hours," said the man with a large grin. Tsunade slurped up the last of the noodles and quickly nudged Minato to wake him up, as he had fallen asleep while she was eating the ramen. "Minato, you will pay the nice man, won't you?" said Tsunade all too sweetly, which made Minato sweat a little, as he rarely saw that face, and he knew that it was even dangerous to look at. "You will pay the nice man, right? said Tsunade with her eyes turning red and her voice becoming demonic sounding, which made Minato's eyes go narrow and his lips to purse in fear. "Please come back later. Ichiraku Ramen is always open," yelled the ramen owner by the name of Tucci, who was currently pleased with the amount of profits he made, while Minato was silently crying over the fact that his wallet was now empty. Soon they arrived at the Kurama clan compound, where they were escorted to the head of the clan, Murakumo, who was waiting in a small room for the shinobi legend to arrive. When the three finally made it to the main house, they found Murakumo waiting, kneeling on a mat. "Yandame, you honor me and my family for coming," greeted Murakumo, who bowed in respect, and then his eyes landed on Tsunade, and he was able to see her small baby bump from carrying the life inside of her. "And to you, Tsunade-sama, congratulations." To which Tsunade smiled and also bowed a little. "Please have a seat." "So tell me, Murakumo-sama, first, tell me what ails your daughter. Second, was she born with the illness or caught it from another?" questioned Tsunade, trying to understand what was afflicting Yakumo. "It's a disease she was born with, and it leaves her body frail and weak. My clan has stressed to me the fact that we have lost much of our power, and they believe that Yakumo is the key to that success," spoke Murakumo, informing Tsunade of what ailed Yakumo. Tsunade bit her nail in thought. "Tsunade-sama?" questioned Shizen, as whenever Tsunade bit her nail it meant she was in deep thought, and was trying to discern how to treat Yakumo. "If she simply caught the disease, then I would be able to treat it easily. But since she was born with it, things have become much more difficult. I may not be able to treat it." "Yes, that could work," said Tsunade, talking to herself, which helped her think on certain subjects. "Have you discovered a way to treat her?" questioned Murakumo, while also Minato was waiting on the answer. "Can you take me to her? I would like to give her a physical examination," asked Tsunade, to which Murakumo agreed, as it was quite reasonable, and if it helped his daughter then it wouldn't hurt giving it a try. The Kurama clan head led his three guests through his humble house, towards his daughter's nursery, where they found Murakumo's wife, Yuroko Kurama, sitting beside the young babe's crib. "Welcome," said Yuroko, bowing with respect to Tsunade and Minato, to which the two bowed back. Tsunade made her way over to the crib of the Kurama clan heiress, and she found the baby sleeping peacefully, her little chest rising and falling ever so softly. It almost seemed like nothing could ruin this moment. For Tsunade, it reminded her of what she was expecting in the near future. To begin the examination, Tsunade softly hefted Yakumo from the crib. Although the baby did show some annoyance, it wasn't enough to wake her up, to which Tsunade sighed thankfully. Tsunda then gestured for Yuroko to come over and hold her daughter, while Tsunade went through hand seals for the Shozen no Jutsu, Mistral Palm technique, so she could attain a full analysis of the baby's health. A few minutes have passed and Tsunade had learned all that she needed. Yuroko then handed over Yakumo to Tsunade, who placed gently back in the crib, and the two women were happy that the baby hadn't woken and caused a fuss. For Tsunade, she wouldn't say it out loud, but she would have liked to hold Yakumo some more, whether it was curiosity, maternal instincts, or just because she liked it didn't really matter, since for Tsunade, she would have plenty of time to be doing that with her own baby once it's born. "Well, from what I learned from that, you don't have to worry, she won't be in any danger in the future unless she overexerts herself, and when she starts training to be a shinobi, I would have developed a special food pill that will boost her vitality and stamina, allowing her to perform the bodily requirements of a shinobi. Although her taijutsu will probably be her worst field when it comes to her training," said Tsunade, smiling a little, even though she was right. Even with the pill, Yakumo's body would still not be fit enough for taijutsu, but just some training in that field and she would be alright. "Thank you, Tsunade-sama," said Yuroko, bowing to the Senju leader along with her husband. And at that moment, Yakumo started to cry, loudly as babes usually did, causing her mother to fret and her father to sigh, as being parents was not an easy thing. Tsunade wondered whether her own child wouldn't be a handful while also being behaved and mature, so they would be easier to handle. But she knew thinking like that would only make that scenario happen. Minato, who had been watching Tsunade examining and holding Yakumo, was truly a heart-warmer for him. He could see the smile the blonde woman had, not the smile of happiness but the smile only a mother could have. He could see that Tsunade was truly excited for the prospect of parenthood, and he was too. Despite not having custody over his soon-to-be-born baby. With the Kurama clan's needs and wants achieved, Minato, Tsunade and Shizen left the compound and the party went their separate ways. Shizen headed for the hospital so she could heal the wounded and assist with their duties. Minato went back to the Hokage Tower as he was still on duty and he wouldn't want to have Sarutobi kill himself so he could escape that vile paperwork. While Tsunade headed for her home as she was feeling tired and under Minato's suggestion should get some rest as it would be good for her. In Kumogakure, among the mountains and clouds the village was famous for, the people and its shinobi were milling about their days in relative peace, which the other nations were also enjoying. Kumogakure was one of the more militaristic villages of the 5 nations, as you saw more shinobi than civilians, and with 2 biju under their belt, one being among the strongest of the tailed beasts, they were easily considered the second strongest village among the elemental nations, with Konoha being stronger than they were. Much to the chagrin of the Raikage who governed the village. Right now the village's current Raikage, the Sandaime Raikage by the name of Z, was currently lifting 2 500-kilogram barbells, roughly 1,102 pounds, with ease as he was staring out at his village. The third was one of the most powerful shinobi in the world. Even Biju were afraid of facing him in battle and was one of the few to face on in battle single-handedly. The others being the shinobi legends, Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha, whose might were so vast the two were recognized as the most powerful shinobis in the world that even the third, if given the chance, must just hesitate in facing them. Z was a tall, dark-skinned man with a large, muscular, and well-defined build. He had a full head of white hair which flowed into his back along with a long beard. He had unusual eyes, which had green irides and dark sclerae and no pupils. His face had pronounced cheekbones and tear troughs beneath his eyes, and a prominent crease across his forehead with a mole just above his right eyebrow. His to lip also has a darker pigmentation than the bottom one. Upon his right shoulder he had a tattoo for the kanji of lightning, and following on of his battles with the Hachibi, 8 tails, the third had a scar on his right torso of a lightning bolt. His typical attire was a Kumogakure flak jacket with no other clothing underneath, a thick rope tied around his waist, with dark blue sweat pants. Raikage-sama, we have received fascinating and shocking news, spoke the Raikage's assistant, who was a light-skinned girl with brown hair. What's news? Questioned Z, the Raikage, who was currently on his 500th rep. News has come from Konohagakure that Tsunade Senju, one of the Densetsu no Sannin, is currently with child, said the Raikage's assistant calmly, but her words made Z stop in his workout and pause in his mind. A Senju heir, thought Z, utterly shocked at the news, the most powerful clan in the world, one feared and respected throughout the world as the Sen no Te Omatsu Ikizoku, the clan with 1,000 skills. He couldn't believe it, he just couldn't. And more news has come from the village, that the Yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze, is the father. Continued the assistant as Z, whose brain was starting to shut down from the news, tried to just stay standing. And that moment Z's son, burst through his door with an equally shocked look on his face. Obviously he too had just heard the news of the Senju heir. Dad! Have you heard? Shouted A at his father, who seemed to be gaping like a fish out of water. Raikage-sama, what should we do? Questioned the girl as she looked at leader. It seems almost too fictional to believe, thought Z as he kept staring out over his village. Ashisuto, is what we have heard from the village true? Queried the burly man. It is, our most trusted contacts have confirmed it. Tsunade is currently 3 months pregnant with her child, said Ashisuto. Dad, what should we do? This child just might be the greatest threat to our village since the rampages of the Hachibi. Spoke with utter seriousness while also overestimating a being who had yet to be born nor will have the power to be a threat to the village for many years. There's nothing we can do. If we attack or kidnap Tsunade, Konoha will respond with violent action and we will be pulled into a war we cannot win, and I doubt Namikaze will be too forgiving regarding the fact that we would threaten his unborn child. Said Z, acting as a rational leader and a wise one. He knew it would be years until the child could be any real threat. What kind of person would be afraid of a baby who had yet to be born yet? It was ludicrous. For now we wait, said Z. But Dad responded A, trying to change his father's mind regarding the whole thing. Enough, if you want to be Raikage one day, then you must have the wisdom to make the right decisions and predict the consequences of their actions. And unlike Iwa or Kiri, we don't seek war, but we do prepare for it, spoke Z, berating his son while also giving him a lesson in leadership. In Sunagakure, where the sun always blazed with intense heat, and the winds carried the specks of dust and sand that would lash at you as if it was a whip. The Yondaime Kazekage was currently sitting in his office, attending to the duties of the Kazekage. He had taken up office when his predecessor and teacher, the Sandaime Kazekage, disappeared without leaving even a hint of himself behind. The Kazekage had auburn hair, dark eyes which always depicted wit, a stern look or a scowl. He wore a simple black jacket and pants, nothing really that would make him stand out. The Kazekage was a stern man who was always placed the well-being of his village above his own needs and wants, even his own family. He had just been coping with the death of his wife who had only died just barely over a week ago. Of course he mourned for her death, for he loved her deeply even if he didn't show it. But still the village demanded that he be as stalwart and stoic as can be. He currently had a squad of his ANBU Black Ops, watching over his newborn son's crib, the Ichibi Jinchuriki. With the help of Chiyo, one of his villagers' elders, they were able to seal the beast inside his unborn son, a decision that would lead to his son's premature birth and his wife's death. He had yet to console his own 2 children, his oldest child Temari nor his oldest son Kankuro. He heard a knock at the door and ushered the person in without looking up from his paperwork. It was one of his ANBU, and they were currently holding a folder which was addressed to the Kazekage. Kachi-sama, we received this letter addressed to you from Konoha. We have already decrypted its contents, and it matches Konoha algorithms and codes, said the ANBU member, placing the folder upon the Kazekage's desk. Kachi, without saying anything, opened the folder and inspected its contents. He found his eyes widening a little at the news, but still keeping up his stern facade, he just placed the folder upon his desk to the side and kept on working. What did it say, Kazekage-sama? Questioned the ANBU member. Tsunade of the Sannin is pregnant with the Yondaime Hokage's child, grunted Kachi as he filed away at his papers. He wasn't at all afraid of a child, especially one that hasn't even been born yet. He and Konoha were allies now. If anything, the birth of a new Senju heir may just be beneficial to Suna. Although he did have to wonder what kind of talent and potential the son of the Yondaime and the legacy of the Shodaime will bear. Shall he be an almighty destroyer or a useful ally? It didn't really matter at the time. In IWA, Anoki the Sandaime Tsuchikage, reputed as the Ryotenbin no Anoki of both scales or the fence-sitter, a man who was one of the few to live through all the 3 great shinobi world wars. A man both feared and respected, Anoki ruled his village with utter surety, and no other carried no love greater than any Tsuchikage for his village. Anoki is a very short man with a triangular beard and a mustache that has angular corners, a big red nose and thick eyebrows. The top of his head is completely bald, a clear sign of old age, although he did have long white hair on the lower half of his head, which is styled in a traditional Chanmage haircut, the back of which is tied with a yellow ribbon into a topknot. He also wore a green and yellow coat with a red collar underneath. He wears a flak jacket of his village, but a light green color with mesh armor and a lapel of the side of his right leg. However, Anoki was a man known for his underhanded tactics to ensure the prosperity of his village. This caused many in the shinobi in the world, both ordinary ninja and kage alike, to frown upon him, his village and his shinobi, who followed their leader's orders without hesitation or question. And if it meant abandoning their comrades for the success of the mission, then that was divine will to them. However, Anoki was gritting his teeth and his eyes looked ready to pop out of his skull. What he had just read and heard caused rage to flow through him like a dam bursting forth from the pressure of water. His most hated enemy, the one that cost him so many of his ninjas' lives and the happiness of their families, was spawning his own right now. He had just discovered that the Tsunade Senju, granddaughter of the Shodaime Hokage, the only Hokage Anoki openly respected, Tsunade was pregnant with the Yondaime's spawn. The first thought that came to Anoki's mind upon hearing the news was to kill the child and make Namikaze suffer, as everyone in IWA had suffered from the man's crimes against his village and the war. However, Anoki didn't live this long if he was stupid. He knew that by attacking Tsunade, a clan leader of Konoha, then it would mean war between IWA and Konoha, a war that was not needed and one they couldn't fight. 3 powerful shinobi clans had joined Konoha, and they also had Suna on their side, and the Uchiha clan were especially feared, ever since Anoki's own encounter with their ancient leader, Madara Uchiha. Many people in his village had already heard the news and were just now shouting for the unborn child's death along with Hyde Yondaime, but of course, knowing the consequences forbade any in his village who were having ideas of heading to Konoha and killing Tsunade, as he knew none of them would survive. But still, he knew that the Senju heir would be a danger in the future. In Kirigakure, secrets and whispers were hidden in the mist. A village governed under the iron rule of its Mizukage. The Yondaime Mizukage Yagura, the village was known for its bloody graduations and civil wars that plagued their land and the harsh treatment of those with Keki Genkai. The village had changed little during that time, and now, those with Keki Genkai were still hunted down like butchered animals, some even paraded around with their bodies and limbs used as warnings to other Keki Genkai wielders. Many viewed Kirigakure and the Land of Water as a country full of savages and brutes. They never have compromises when it comes to government, and they never engage in diplomacy. Many children were butchered. Formed their graduation test. Savina class a few years ago was slaughtered by a single boy who wasn't even an academy student. Yagura, the Yandame Mizukage, was currently reading a report detailing information both important and scandalous to those who read it. Yugura was a small man with a youthful appearance, with people commonly mistaking him as a child rather than a fully grown adult. He has a head of messy, light gray hair and pink, pupilless eyes and a stitch-like scar running from under his left eye, all the way down to his cheek. He wore a sleeveless, gray shirt with the Kirigakure Hitayate attached to the front and short-sleeved mesh armor underneath with a green poncho with a turquoise sash around his waist, paired with a green apron over his pants. He never would have guessed that someone like Tsunade Senju would fall pregnant with the child of the Yandame Hokage. Even the thought of Minato and Tsunade together having and raising a child was laughable and unrealistic, while also unlikely. But since Tsunade was confirmed to be 3 months pregnant with the child and claiming Minato was the father was just proof that what happened, happened. However, Yugura was unaware of the shadow lurking behind him. Also reading the report, this person was wearing a black kimono and black gloves with bandages underneath his body with a head of messy black hair. The shade of night, and wore an orange mask with a flame-like pattern with a single eye hole where a red eye was visible and within the eye was 3 tomos circling it. Now this is an interesting development, a new Senju. Spoke the voice with nothing but malice and dark desires within it. In Konoha, a clan was having a meeting, one of the oldest clans in Konoha, if not one of the oldest in the world, an immensely powerful clan that many feared facing in battle. A clan known for their talents in war and the prowess of their chakra, which was extremely strong compared to other clans. This clan was gathering under one of their sacred shrines, a shrine that many in the Hidden Leaf village were not aware of. Only during times of importance of war and other matters was the entire clan gathered together such as they are now. And very few knew of what secrets it truly hid. What must we do about this news? We will lose all the power in the village we have accumulated. What little we have left. The child is born from our old enemies, it may turn against us someday. But it is the child of the Hokage, it will most likely be groomed to become Hokage in the near future. The people will rally behind it, just as they have done for that clan before. Silence! Yelled a voice that reverberated through the hall, silencing the voices and dissent among them. Look at you, you the Uchiha! Scared and cowering under the threat of a child, an unborn one even more, have we ever feared a child? I ask you? Spoke the voice which belonged to a man who was standing before a stone tablet with writing on it that was indecipherable to the naked eye. Only people with rather specific eyes could read what was on the tablet. The voice belonged to a man. This man had short black hair that reached his shoulders and onyx-colored eyes, with visible creases below them which became more pronounced when he adopted a stern look. He wore a standard Konoha flak jacket along with a black shirt with the Konoha Military Police Force symbol on the shoulders, shin guards and a black, open-front apron with white diamonds on the bottom. This man was Fugaku Uchiha, the current head of the Uchiha clan. Fugaku was a man who placed the needs of his clan above the needs of the village. Outwardly he looked like a strict fellow, however although he was strict, when not seen by others he was a loving man who had great love for his wife, eldest son and his own soon-to-be-born child. His love for his clan was so great that he would do just about anything to ensure its well-being. However, he was troubled by the news of a Senju heir, one whose father was the Yandame Hokage. He suspected that the child would wield great influence within the village, probably more so than the Uchiha clan. Because the child's father was the Yandame, a veteran of the Third Shinobi World War, his mother was the head of the Senju clan while also being descended of both the Shodame and the Naidame Hokage. And the child's potential was incredibly enormous given its lineage. As much as we love talking about the danger this child can warrant, our ancestors made peace with the Senju long ago, and we founded this village with them. And among other things, this child will of course be closely monitored by a unit of ANBU soldiers. There is nothing we can do except sit by and watch. Spoke Fugaku while his pregnant wife, who was sitting within the crowd, breathed a silent sigh of relief, as if they did attack Tsunade it would lead the Uchiha to become distrusted among the village. So we do nothing as always. Spoke another rude Uchiha. No, we won't simply do nothing. If the child is female, then we will arrange a marriage between it and one of our own clansmen, strengthening the Uchiha. Said Fugaku to reassure his clan. And if the child just so happens to be a boy, then that plan is fucked. Said another Uchiha, and the meeting was concluded shortly after that. Time passed on, always moving forward and never backward. Time almost seemed to suit Konoha. They were always moving forward, no matter what was thrown at them. They were always moving forward. Maybe it was their indomitable will of fire, or they were just too stubborn to back down from a fight. But one thing that was certain was the fire in their eyes when they were protecting what was precious to them. The village was their family, their loved ones and their friends. Konoha shinobi were each other's brothers and sisters. The entire village was a large family, and so the shinobi. Even their Hokage would fight to their last breath to protect that family and everything their village stood for. But there was one family that were enjoying themselves more than others. It had been 3 months since Tsunade had performed a medical checkup on Murakumo's baby daughter, Yakumo Karama, and things had seemed to settle down in the village regarding her package. People were milling about their days unhindered and unperturbed. Especially Tsunade, since worrying and stressing were the least amount of things she needed at the moment. The blonde woman had finally grown accustomed to the fact that a living being was growing inside of her, and was nearly ready to join her when that time came. Her once small baby bump was now a large belly carrying the bundle of joy within her. She had been receiving frequent visits from her former teacher and mentor Hiruzen Sarutobi and his wife Biwako Sarutobi. It most likely came from the fact that Hiruzen became a father figure to her once her own father died during the First Shinobi World War, and as she remembered Sarutobi and her father were rather close friends. And Biwako had been an extreme use of help and support. Raising 2 boys herself, she knew exactly what being a mother was like. She helped her through the symptoms of the pregnancy such as the mood swings and the food cravings to which Tsunade had developed a rather unhealthy obsession for ramen as she couldn't get enough of the food now. And Biwako even told her of birth and what came after it, hoping to prepare the younger blonde-haired woman for the trials of motherhood which were difficult and arduous, but the rewards were well worth it. Even now Tsunade was already acting like an overprotective mother, caring as if her child was a fragile leaf that could break upon contact. Though one thing that Tsunade was not pleased about when it came to being a mother was her child's suitors, boyfriends and girlfriends alike. If she had a boy, she wanted the young man to find someone like her, someone who can put him in his place should he get out of hand or does something incredibly stupid, but at the same time, someone they can truly be themselves around. And if she was having a girl, she wanted a man who would look after her, as a person. Her daughter could stand on her own 2 feet, but there would come a time that she would need comfort from another. But if there was one thing she was dreading were her children having to be chased around by the bane of all kunoichis. Fangirls, sometimes boys. She would hate the day when her child would grow up to be quite a beautiful human being with her chasing off all the fangirls that would fawn over them. Her thoughts were broken when she heard the flapping of wings which originated from the sky and came swooping down. It was a flock of ducks which came flying at a location towards her. She was currently sitting near the edge of a small pond located in her clan's now empty compound, within her own mansion. The pond wasn't too big and it wasn't too small. It was just right, and there was a small sakura tree to which she was sitting under and a small gazebo not too far to her left. Tsunade could remember the days she spent with her mother by the pond as her mother sang her lullabies and told her stories of the ventures of her father and grandfather. The pond was also a place where she could have fun with her grandfather, who spoiled her greatly as a child, something which she wouldn't do with her own child. The pond was home to many types of small life, to koi fish and small harmless crabs, and nearly every week a flock of ducks would fly down and swim in the water of the pond. She was currently watching the birds play in the water, and most of the ducks were only babies who were accompanied by their mother. Tsunade smiled at the sight, and she lovingly stroked her belly in delight. If only she had some bread with her so to feed the ducks and make this already beautiful even more perfect, for today was a special day for her. It was a day, special for her and only her. It was her birthday. August 2nd. Today she was 39 years of age, and she was surprised with herself. After what happened in her life she was slightly shocked that she had lived as long as she had. She wondered if anyone important seemed to have remembered her birthday, other than Shizen who gave her a nice book to read. But still, there must be someone. Minato was walking to the Senju clan compound for Tsunade's birthday. He had already chosen a gift for her, and he thought it was something that she would enjoy. He had spent a great amount of time and effort trying to decide on a present for the mother of his soon-to-be-born child. But now he had finally decided on one. The blonde Hokage while walking to the compound saw Hiruzen just in the corner of his vision, walking with his wife, and they too were holding presents. He smiled, knowing that it would bring Tsunade great comfort. But there was one thing that made his mind pause, someone who might or might not show up for Tsunade's birthday, someone who loved her unconditionally. A man who was also like a father to him. Jiraiya. He had sent a letter to his spymaster telling him of Tsunade's birthday, although he left out the information of Tsunade being pregnant. All the great nations were now aware of Minato's growing family, and Jiraiya, being as knowledgeable as he was, must know by now. Minato wondered what Jiraiya was feeling right now. Was he furious that Minato slept with the woman he loved most? Was he happy that his student who was like a son to him was going to be a father, or was it a bit of both? There was also another person who he was concerned about, Kushina. His ex, knowing her, she would mostly be angry, and when she was angry, she tended to get violent. Minato could only wish that Kushina would not cause trouble in the near future, hopefully. The Yondaime had the Senju compound within his sights where Tsunade and the others were waiting for him. But there was one person who he was hoping to talk to and yet did not expect to see. Jiraiya was currently standing before the mansion holding a wrapped-up, brown gift bound with twine. Minato stopped in his stride. He was a little hesitant to talk to his old master. Would he be disappointed in him, or would it be another feeling? "Sensei," said Minato, catching Jiraiya's attention, who turned his head to look at his old pupil. "Minato, been a while," said Jiraiya with a smile. Although it was a warm greeting, Minato hoped that things would go alright from then and onward. Sensei, said Minato, trying to start an awkward conversation with the Toad Sage. You don't have to say anything, Minato, I know, said Jiraiya softly. Wait, aren't you angry at me, for I don't know, knocking up Tsunade? Said Minato, genuinely surprised at how mature his sensei was being. It was really out of character for the super pervert. When I discovered Tsunade was pregnant with your child, I was angry. I wanted to march over here and beat your face into the ground, but that would cause more problems than solve them. I've loved Tsunade ever since we were genin, and I loved you as if you were my own son, and what the two of you did together. It made my blood boil. I felt betrayed. Confessed Jiraiya, and every word that came out of his mouth was true. He was fueled by rage and jealousy towards Minato at first. But then I came to my senses. If I really loved Tsunade, all I wanted was to make her happy, and if he gave her happiness, then I don't really have the right to whinge, don't I? Said Jiraiya, grinning largely and happily. Thank you, Sensei. At least we got that down and out of the way, said Minato, sighing in relief that his sensei wasn't angry. Besides, maybe someday I can take the little guy on a research trip, said Jiraiya, giggling perversely and blushing a little. Don't let Tsunade catch you saying that. She might beat you into the ground for even thinking of corrupting our baby. And what makes you think it's a boy? Questioned Minato, as he and Tsunade had decided not to discover the gender of the baby until it was born. Because she made a bet that the baby is going to be a girl. Deadpan Jiraiya. Great, I'm having a son, said Minato happily and walking into the mansion. Tsunade always lost her bets. They soon found Biwako and Hiruzen waiting for them. They also invited Orochimaru, but it was unlikely that he would appear. They walked around the house and found Shizen, who led them to Tsunade, who was still sitting by the pond rubbing her large belly. However, something was wrong. Minato could see tears trailing down Tsunade's cheeks and staining her kimono, which she was wearing for the occasion. Minato took the initiative and approached Tsunade. Tsunade, is everything alright? Is the baby alright? Questioned Minato, as he was now kneeling beside the blonde-haired woman. Said woman snapped her head to the left to see Minato with a worried look on his face. Tsunade, regaining herself, wiped away her tears with the sleeve of her kimono and adopted a smile. Everything's fine, it's just, the baby is kicking, she said softly, feeling soft and tiny kicks of their baby. The little one had been kicking for a little while, and throughout it, Swanda had cried out of sheer happiness, just even more proof that she was going to be a mother, and every day that passed she grew more excited at the prospect. Minato, finding Tsunade's smile infectious, smiled with her, and he placed his hands upon her tummy trying to feel the baby's kicks. And he could feel the soft kicks, and he knew that being a father was one of the most rewarding things in the world. What's that you have there? Queried Tsunade as she laid her eyes on the package Minato was holding. The blonde-haired man handed the package over to Tsunade, who opened it carefully. And what she saw made her gasp. It was a photo book, and upon the front cover was the words, "Family." Tsunade opened the book only to see that every page was blank. "It's empty," stated the blonde-haired woman. "Then we just have to fill it," said Minato, sitting down next to her. Tsunade looked back down at the book and silently wept. She knew now that the book had a purpose of storing pictures of them and their child, so to remember the memories they would have. The Senju clan head had never received such a gift before, and this showed that Minato cared enough for her and their baby, and that was what was making her cry. "Don't forget us," said Hiruzen, with Biwako and Jiraiya following after him. Hiruzen and Biwako gave Tsunade a small blanket with the Senju clan's symbol, Konoha's symbol, and the kanji for fire on it. And Tsunade loved it, every detail of it. It was the purest expression that her baby was also a child of the village, and would be loved by the villagers also. Jiraiya gave Tsunade his bound gift, and when she opened them she felt nothing but joy. It was 2 toys, one of them a fluffy bunny and the other a white, plush Asian dragon, for the baby to play with. And without asking, Jiraiya responded with, "Every kid needs a good toy." And then came a surprise visit from Kakashi, who was watching all over them in the shadows. He was currently wearing his ANBU attire, and his mask was still on his face. The young silver-haired young man didn't say anything other than pull out a pair of woolly bunny pajamas that were blue in color. Tsunade took them out of his hand and just awed at them for a moment. The first picture she was going to take, but in the photo book, was going to be her baby wearing these pajamas so she could embarrass any girlfriends or boyfriends, even grandchildren, in the near future. "Thank you, Kakashi," said Tsunade, to which she got up and kissed the ANBU member on the cheek, well, the mask cheek, but you get the idea. And thankfully for Kakashi, he was wearing 2 masks so he could hide his blush. Of course, he was 13 years old, so it wasn't odd, and he was kissed by a beautiful woman, so it was normal. Then Shizen came around the corner carrying a cake she had been baking the entire day. "Time for the cake," she said happily. And everyone seemed to notice that the cake had 39 candles upon it, obviously referencing Swanda's age. The cake was white and tasted like vanilla with buttercream frosting, Tsunade's favorite. A few hours of drinking later, although Tsunade wasn't allowed to have sake, much to her annoyance. The happy family went their separate ways, although Jiraiya and Tsunade to have a conversation, and she was relieved that Jiraiya didn't harbor any negative feelings towards her, Minato, or their baby. However, there was one person who came around to her mansion, someone she did not expect to see. Currently, Tswanda was by her pond feeding the ducks that would take residence within the water and the koi fish that were swimming around joyously. Tsunade could feel a shadow approaching, and she could feel jealousy writhe from this person. There was only one who could be here walking into her home bringing such negative emotion with them. Tsunade turned her head to the right to see Kushina Uzumaki, standing there with a stoic face and in her casual attire. Tsunade already had a good guess as to why she was here, and unlike Jiraiya, who endured no matter what was thrown at him, Kushina was not so easily enduring. "Kushina, how can I help you?" said Tsunade, trying to maintain a facade of positivity and helpfulness. "I came to talk," stated the woman bluntly, as she faced the older blonde. "And don't say talk about what, as I think we both know what I'm talking about." Tsunade sighed at the redhead. She knew that the day would come when Kushina would confront her over the debacle between Tsunade and Minato. "I want to know your feelings regarding Minato," asked Kushina with a steely gaze which made Tsunade raise her eyebrows at the woman, but then narrowed them at the sheer contempt she was showing within her eyes. "I love him, but only as the father of my child, nothing more," said Tsunade, answering Kushina's question. "Are you sure about that, since you allowed him to knock you up?" Deadpanned Kushina. He kept glaring at Tswanda. "That entire thing was an accident. It was an accident, yes, but not one I regret," said Tswanda, rubbing her tummy in admiration and protectiveness. "And I don't see why you care. You broke up with Minato before we even discovered I was pregnant. So why are you still harboring feelings for him?" "Why should I tell you? It doesn't involve you," retorted Kushina, and it was strange seeing the naturally kind and cheerful woman this bitter and jealous. "And why should I tell you what happened between Minato and myself? It doesn't involve you," snarled Tsunade, using Kushina's own words against the redhead. "We may not love each other nor are we married, but it doesn't excuse the fact that he moved on. So as soon as Minato is done with me, he moves on to you, the beautiful granddaughter of the Shodaime Hokage. Of course he would go after you," said Kushina, crossing her arms. "You also forget that I'm just as much Uzumaki as are you. Mito was my grandmother, and you weren't the only one mourning after she died," said Tsunade, stating her clan origins with not just the Senju but Uzumaki also. "Don't bring Mito-sama into this," warned Kushina, as it was Mito who provided her with everything she needed in Konoha and more. "I can because she's my grandmother, not yours," grunted Tsunade at the redhead. Things were starting to heat up between the two. Kunoichi and Kushina was intentionally tapping into the Kyuubi, causing Kushina's eyes to become blood red with slits for pupils. Tsunade seeing the eyes widen them in disbelief, as she knew of things such as Jinchuriki and Biju, and now that she thought about it, Kushina was the perfect host for the Kyuubi. "Why did you even keep it? I never would have expected you to actually want a child," said Kushina rudely. However, this struck the wrong chord with Tsunade, as the blonde woman's eyes became immediately enraged. "You can insult me and Minato all you like, but if you insult my baby I will put you down," warned Tsunade, not afraid of facing Kushina. "And you were the one who got Minato drunk in your own office? It almost sounded like you wanted him to fuck you," accused Kushina. However, Tsunade was unaffected by the accusation. Even though it wasn't true, it didn't bother her. But hearing that reaction, Tsunade knew there was an ulterior motive to what Kushina was saying. "This isn't about the pregnancy or me having sex with Minato," said Tsunade, understanding Kushina's motives and reasons, and she knew she hit jackpot when Kushina's eyes returned to their original violet color. "But stuttered Kushina, trying to form tangible words. "You're angry over the fact that I've made him happier in the last 6 months than you at the time when he proposed to you," said Tsunade, where Kushina widened her eyes in surprise. "Don't think you know what makes him happy," growled Kushina, whose eyes returned to their slitted blood red. "You don't know anything about him." Tsunade, feeling the air become denser and danger encroaching upon her, decided it was a good time to back down and tried to calm Kushina before things became out of hand. "Kushina, I think you should calm down. Just take a deep breath and calm down," said Tsunade, shielding her protruding belly and placing an arm in front of her reassuringly, trying to calm Kushina. "How can I keep calm when you stole everything from me?" yelled Kushina as she unleashed a torrent of the Kyuubi's chakra, which arced out around her like a shockwave. Tsunade didn't have enough time to run, dodge, or even move before she was struck in the stomach by the wave of foul chakra, and the hand that was shielding her belly was burned and scarred from the mighty power. As a result, Tsunade fell to the ground on her side, writhing in pain and fear from the corrosive nature of the chakra. Shizun, who had heard the shout, ran around the corner to see her master on the ground clutching at her stomach with tears falling from her eyes. "Tsunade-sama!" shouted Shizun, frightened for her master and her baby. Shizen reached into her robes and pulled out a 3-pronged kunai with a seal formula on it where she channeled chakra into it, and barely half a second passed before Minato suddenly appeared before Shizen with a worried expression on his face. And the first thing he was squirming on the ground in agony and horror, and he saw Kushina with red eyes, and it didn't take him long to piece together what had transpired. Rushing over to Tsunade at top speeds, he hefted the wounded blonde woman carefully in a bridal position. "Tee the baby," whimpered Tsunade, who was crying freely at the thought of losing her child. Kushina, seeing Tsunade's tears and worried expression, knew what had happened. She had lost control for only a split second, and it was enough to nearly kill Tsunade. It was an accident, I swear I dash." She never got to finish her question as Minato didn't even look at her and instead teleported Shizen and Tsunade away from the Senju compound and to the hospital where they could treat her as soon as possible. Kushina was left alone in the small park in the compound by the pond, and even the ducks that had nestled by the water were flying away from her. Even the birds were disappointed in her. When Minato and Shizen, with the wounded Tsunade in tow, teleported to the hospital, they were immediately shouting for Biwako Sarutobi to assist them. When Biwako heard the shouting, she rushed around the corners of the hospital to find Minato in a frenzied state, and Tsunade crying and panting in pain and terror. Without hesitation or stupid comments, Biwako found a room where they could treat Tsunade and possibly save the baby, although Minato was forced to leave the room because he would be a distraction, something he agreed with. So he waited for hours on end, outside the hospital room, waiting for any news of Tsunade to come, but things were quiet, and the quiet put the Hokuji on edge. He didn't know if his child was still alive at this point. He was so disgusted with how Kushina acted and how she put people in danger. The Kyuubi looks for any negative emotion to feed on so it could escape its confines and destroy the village which had imprisoned it. It would most likely kill Tsunade, Kushina, and the Uchiha clan for their relations to the founders, Hashirama Senju, Mito Uzumaki, and Madara Uchiha, the ones who specifically jailed and contained it. He knew those 3 people were among the many that the Kyuubi hated most. But Kushina lost control. Even for a second, the demon fox could have taken out its rage upon the village, the volatile power of the fox that even the Shodaime Hokage, who was unable to kill the fox as its power was far too fearsome. However, the seal wasn't broken, only weakened. It may pose a problem in the future, but right now the situation could be handled. 3 hours had passed and Minato was still waiting outside the hospital room for any news. By his side was Hiruzen, who had heard what happened and dashed his way to the hospital. The third was also worried about Tsunade and the baby. It was troubling news, and apparently from what Minato told him, the Kyuubi's poisonous chakra had struck Tsunade's womb and may have killed the child inside of her. And if that did happen, Hiruzen could foresee Tsunade falling into an even greater depression, worse than her sorrow for the losses of Dan and Nawaki. A depression she would never heal from and would inadvertently drink herself to death from the heartbreak, something which Sarutobi never wanted for Tsuwanda. He could only hope for the best now and trust in his wife and Shizen's medical prowess. And finally, what seemed like forever, the door to the room opened and out came Biwako, who was currently rubbing the sweat off her forehead from the stress of the operation. Minato, seeing Biwako leave the room, jumped out of his seat, followed by Hiruzen. "Biwako, is everything alright? Is the baby alright?" asked Minato desperately. Hiruzen also wished to know, as he had to force himself to not bite his nails. "Everything is fine," she stated with a smile which also made Hiruzen and Minato smile in relief. "We were quite lucky. If she hadn't had arrived at the hospital any later, the baby would have surely died," said Biwako, which almost made Minato faint, but it seems his moniker of the Kiroi Senko, Yellow Flash, pulled through after all. "So what exactly happened?" questioned Hiruzen. "The backlash from the Kyuubi's chakra was poisonous. The worst amount of damage came in the form of Tsuwanda's hand where she was cradling her stomach. It suffered multiple burns which, with enough healing, will disappear in time, although a small amount hit her stomach where it infected the baby. Because of its weak body and undeveloped chakra, the horrendous power of the Kyuubi nearly overwhelmed it, and would have destroyed its cells quickly had we not intervened. However, we were able to heal the damage. The severity done to the cells and the constant creation of new cells have shortened its natural lifespan," said Biwako sadly. "How much has it been shortened?" questioned Minato. "Unknown, but given the fact that the child is of Uzumaki and Senju descent means it would have a great life force and longevity," said Biwako, trying to ease the Hokage's nerves. "She is right, Mito Uzumaki. Tsunade's grandmother lived well before the founding of the hidden villages and lived through most of my reign as Sandaime Hokage, and she still looked like she was 60. She didn't have a single white hair on her head either," said Hiruzen. "If the child has inherited any of its ancestors' famous longevity, then I doubt not much of its life has been shortened. Like I said before, only a small amount of the Kyuubi's chakra harmed the child," retorted Biwako. Minato seemed to sigh in relief at the news. He didn't care if his child's life was shortened so long as it was still alive. "And how is Tsunade?" queried Minato. "She's currently resting. The stress of this whole ordeal has taken a great toll on her, and her body needs rest and healing so to recover from the Kyuubi's chakra. But other than that, she will be fine. Women are stronger than men after all, said Biwako with a sly wink. And that's something I'd admit in a heartbeat, and also not something I can contest either, thought Hiruzen with a small sweat drop. So with all that drama done and over with, everything settled down, although Minato would have a talk with Kushina later on, regarding her actions and her jealousy. Later Tsunade was released from the hospital after her recovery and was subjected to enormous doting from Minato, who worried for her every action, much to her chagrin. And the events surrounding what happened were kept secret so to not allow the village to become head over heels in panic and turmoil at the knowledge of a Jinchuriki in their midst. And the fake story as to why Tsunade was at the hospital in critical condition was, she fell. Although when Danzo and the other elders heard of the news, they were less than pleased to hear of the near loss of the Senju heir and the escape of the Kyuubi. But still, after the incident, Biwako classified the rest of Tsunade's pregnancy as a high-risk pregnancy, as there may be some adverse side effects to the baby being exposed to the Kyuubi's chakra, and she was under constant guard and watched by a team of ANBU members, and the reason Kakashi wasn't there to protect her because his childhood friend Guy, who had somehow found him, challenged him to one of his challenges and was continuing to bother him, while the silver-haired ANBU was officially on duty and had to protect Tsunade as per his mission. Needless to say, Guy also received a tongue lashing from his self-appointed rival. So for the next few months things were peaceful. However, no one in the village could predict the dark motives of a dark individual hiding in the shadows. This figure was moving the pieces on the board, and disaster was going to follow in his wake, with great loss following after him like a loyal dog. Would anyone be safe from the lingering cycle of hatred? It had been a month since Tsunade was hospitalized by Kushina's chakra outburst. Strong action was taken against Kushina, with her shinobi duties being suspended for a short amount of time. Tsunade begrudgingly forgave the Uzumaki but still had a bit of a grudge against her. Kushina was remorseful over what happened. She was ashamed of herself for acting up that way and disregarding Mito's teachings, that a vessel must be filled with love to tame the hatred of the beast. She was even more ashamed of the fact that because of her she harmed Mito's only living family. Minato had forgiven Kushina, although it took some time for him to actually accept Kushina's apology and let bygones be bygones. At least his child was still alive and Swanda would recover from the experience. Hiruzen was able to settle things between the two women and calm the people who were worrying over Tsunade's health and safety. But he also had much planning that needed to be done. Tsunade was inching closer to her due date, when the baby would be born, and Biwako, his wife, had classified the blonde-haired woman's pregnancy as high-risk pregnancy, so things must be handled carefully. And because the unborn child was exposed to the Kyuubi's chakra, unseen circumstances may occur that could potentially spiral down to disaster. Hiruzen wanted the child to be born, so they could make their mother and father happy, even more so that the child very presence within their mother. He also made a silent promise to both parents that he would protect the child should anything happen. The baby may even have the power that Kinkaku and Ginkaku commanded, the two Kyumo shinobi who killed the Nidaime Reikage and almost killed the child's ancestor, the Nidaime Hokage. So right now he and Biwako were going to meet with Tsunade and Minato to discuss the birth, and what precautions must be taken to ensure the baby's life and safety. Hiruzen couldn't shake this feeling, it almost as if he was standing next to a black sun, burning hot and full of shadow. He could feel this malicious will in the air. It almost felt like it had a purpose, to take something away, and bring loss and grief to all. There were very few times Hiruzen had this feeling. The first time was when he and his team were surrounded by the Kinkaku unit during the First Shinobi World War. That time he and Danzo were going to volunteer themselves to be a sacrifice so their teammates could escape, but his mentor, Tobirama Senju, made the decision to be the sacrifice. The second time was during the Third Shinobi World War. Konoha was on its hands and knees in defeat, and Hiruzen was losing his loyal shinobi left and right because of the then superior might of IWA, and the Black Sun trailed the Hokage all that time, and it was only because of the efforts of Minato winning the war and securing victory for Konoha did the burning sensation of the Black Sun disappear. But now he was feeling it again, and when he felt the Black Sun, just like how Tsunade always won her bets, something unforeseen and destructive would follow. He just couldn't shake the feeling of the Black Sun. Biwako, knowing that her loving husband had yet to say or look at her, knew exactly what he was feeling, and she knew that something was coming, something that not even a Hokage could perceive. But she also knew that the Black Sun was only a sign of terrible events happening, but what would come after it were positives that could shape lives. It was only the Black Moon that she was afraid of. But still Hiruzen, he could feel hatred in the air and in the water that he drank, on his skin. Was this the hatred of the Kyuubi or something else? Would Minato defend his family from this hatred, or would he fall trying to protect them? Either way, Hiruzen knew that a father's will to protect their family was among the strongest forces in the world. But it was the mother that was truly scary, and if Tsunade was the mother, it's as suicide as punching a bear in the nose and not expecting to be shredded apart. The thought of a protective and most likely lethal Tsunade sent shivers down Hiruzen's spine. He could scare her with her temper since she was a child, and he was still afraid of her now. And he knew that he was going to be the farthest away from Tsunade during the birth, and will quite possibly snap Minato in two during the birth. But for Minato, he was expected to be there since he was the father. Hiruzen pitied the blonde man a little. But still there were perks to being at the birth, such as holding the defenseless child in your arms, completely dependent on their parents until they were ready to stand on their own 2 feet and would handle the world themselves. Though there would come a day where the child would lose its innocence, mainly if it became a shinobi. The potential the child would exhibit could make even Danzo froth at the mouth form just thinking about it. If it was a monster like its own great-grandfather, then Danzo would kill to have that kind of power under his belt. Hiruzen was not fool enough to believe the excuses Danzo would make to cover his trail and any other underhanded tactics that he would use to his advantage. Hamura and Koharu would even support him if the baby exerted any potential of its parents and ancestors. Even now Hiruzen, with mastery of all 5 nature transformations, would admit that he was still inferior to the prowess of the Shodame Hokage. Although he was sure he could still trump the Nidame Hokage. The Sandame now had the Senju compound in his view, where he would discuss with Tsunade and Minato the circumstances of the Senju heir's birth. So now they were sitting in a room perfect for the occasion. In front of him was Tsunade, who was 7 months pregnant, and Minato, who looked a little nervous, probably worrying over bad news that wouldn't come. Tsunade had also adopted a worried face, most likely, just the same as Minato, was worrying over the encroaching birth of her future heir. Tsunade, as you know full well what will happen in less than 2 months, said Hiruzen, stressing the fact of the birth. The elders and the clan heads have emphasized the importance of this delivery. They want the new Senju heir to be healthy and strong, and, when you are undergoing labor, that everything is perfect and there are no complications. Some say it's for the future strength of the village, while others are wishing for your happiness. But I'm afraid if I have to agree with them, after what happened with Kushina, your child was exposed to the chakra of the Kyubi no Yoko. There may already be complications because of that. Danzo has advocated several chosen ANBU members, ANBU from Root, to be your midwives, while also a squad will act as your protection during the birth. However, I know his scheme, so instead I informed the council that I had already chosen midwives and a select few personal guards to act as protection, ANBU members under my direct command and are immensely loyal to me and Minato. Clarified Hiruzen over a meeting between the clan heads and the elders. He almost laughed when he saw Danzo's face at having lost his prize. Besides, Danzo almost seemed like a person who would rip babies away from their mothers. Thank you, sensei, said Tsunade gratefully. At least she would not have Danzo's lackeys watching her every move, although the squad of ANBU and the chosen midwives were non-negotiable. She would have liked to have Shizen help deliver her baby, but her schedule had been damning this entire time, and she would be unable to help with the delivery. Although Tsunade was a little disappointed at that, she knew that Shizen wasn't always at her beck and call. For extra safety precautions, I have chosen a location, a little outside the village but not too far away, where you can give birth in relative peace and safety. With Danzo leaking information of the baby, it has all the clan heads wary of the other villages. Even now, the Senju clan's power and influence, as well as their legacy, have not been forgotten by today. Many clans would like nothing more than to revitalize the Senju clan within their own village. Even Inoki would love nothing more than to have the most powerful clan in the world under his thumb. Continued Hiruzen. Biwako will be one of your midwives. She has experience and knowledge on baby delivery. Her assistance will be of utmost help, and an ANBU medic by the name of Taji will be assisting her. We already have the ANBU unit on standby, and the location has already been prepped for the delivery. We even sealed the location with a powerful barrier should anyone defeat the ANBU outside, assured Biwako, easing some of Tsunade's tensions. This seems like overkill, that many precautions for an unborn child, said Tsunade, bewildered at what she was hearing. Unfortunately, while I was able to negotiate a compromise with the protection guard and the midwives, the elders insisted on a barrier to be set during the birth, said Sarutobi, which made Tsunade sigh a little. Well, I don't really have a choice, do I? Said Tsunade, asking a rhetorical question. She then felt a warm pressure on her hand and looked to the left to see Minato giving her a spirit-lifting smile which calmed her more. At least the father would be there to see it through. Kakashi won't breath a word of this to anyone, since I know he's listening right now. Right, Kakashi? Said Minato, calling out to Kakashi. Said ANBU member appeared out of nowhere and said, Yes, Minato-sensei. Before disappearing again without a trace. Well, it seems everything has been sorted, so all we can do now is wait, said Minato. With a happy smile, and Tsunade smiled with him too. She was going to be something which she always dreamed of being, and the package that would be delivered would not be too far away. So have you thought of names yet? Questioned Biwako, as she was curious to know the name of the new Senju heir coming into the world. If it's a girl, we'll call her Tsubomi. It seems fitting for her in Tsunade's words. And if it's a boy, we'll call him Naruto, the name of the main character in Jiraiya-sensei's first novel, that isn't smut, said Minato, speaking for both himself and Tsunade. When Minato had discovered that Tsunade had bet on the gender of the child, he was of course exasperated from the thing, as the baby was undoubtedly a boy, given Tsunade's gambling luck and any bet in particular, so it was a boy, ruining the surprise for Minato. And Tsunade was adamant that the baby would be a girl, so much as she had already gone and decided upon a name, while Minato had chosen Naruto from Jiraiya's novel, one of his favorites, and would hope that his own son would be like the character in the book. Wonderful names they are, said Hiruzen, happy for both parents. But still it was going to be a boy, since Tsunade had bet on a girl. He would have to tell Jiraiya and anyone else in the village to bet on a boy, since people were betting on which sex the Senju heir would be. So Hiruzen might as well cash in all his money on a boy, since he had just won the bet. It's best if you prepare yourselves, for when the time comes, expect anything to happen regarding this birth, said Biwako, with her and Hiruzen leaving the Senju clan compound, leaving Tsunade and Minato alone. I still can't believe that the baby is almost here, said Minato with a smile, and for Tsunade it was the same thing. She was eagerly counting down the days until its arrival. It would be surreal for her, not being pregnant, since she had grown used to it. She would sometimes wake up from her naps because the little one within kept kicking her. And with each passing day the kicks would become stronger and stronger. It was just like her child to be strong, like her. However, she was also scared. Because of Danzo leaking word to the other villages, it means her child will always be a target for other shinobi of the villages. They would either kidnap the child or kill it so it wouldn't become a threat to them in the future. But so long as Minato and herself were alive, it would make their enemies pause in their attempts, as both were highly regarded as the strongest of their fields. But still, her life will not become easier once the baby was born. 2 months later, Biwako and Tsunade were heading to the location where the baby would be born. It was a long walk and an annoying one for Biwako, as Tsunade was slow because her belly was now huge and the blonde would complain about her breasts, making her shoulders stiff. Biwako was slightly surprised that Tsunade didn't keel over and fall to the ground from all the weight she was carrying. To Biwako's knowledge, Minato and the squad of A and BU were already at the location, waiting for them, and Biwako was no pushover when it came to being a kunoichi. She could more than handle protecting Tsunade from any threat that would harm them on the way to the location. Hiruzen had stayed behind at the Hokage Tower, tending to Minato's duties because of the blonde man preparing for the birth. Although the Sandaime did grumble about paperwork, he was quickly silenced by a glare from his wife. But still, Hiruzen told Biwako that the Black Sun was still trailing the retired Hokage. For whatever reason the Black Sun was following after Hiruzen. It meant that something was going to happen, but still Biwako stressed that nothing would happen and everything would go right, as Rain and Tsunade's child will enter the world without complaint. How much longer are we going to walk? My feet are sore, questioned Tsunade as she rubbed her sore shoulders. Because of the pregnancy, Tsunade's breasts had swelled with milk so to feed the baby when it was born, so her already large breasts were even bigger. Something Jiraiya commented on, saying that if Tsunade's breasts got any bigger she wouldn't be able to move, let alone stand. Unfortunately at the time Tsunade had heard him, and he spent the next 2 months in intensive care, eating through a drip and having Minato constantly saying told you not to say anything about her breasts. But throughout the pregnancy Tsunade had a happy glow around her. She smiled more, and she was kinder to those around her. Biwako knew this glow all too well, as she had that certain glow since she was pregnant. A couple of hours at the pace we're traveling at, answered Biwako with a stalwart face, as she was mildly annoyed with her husband's former student. How come she had to be the one escorting Tsunade? The woman was as cranky as a shark with a toothache. Although Biwako did understand a little of what Tsunade was feeling, as she was very cranky when she was pregnant with her 2 boys and her husband had to take her abuse such as the mood swings and food cravings. But can't Minato just, I don't know, reverse summon us with Hiraishin and we can be there quicker? Moaned Swanda in annoyance. But with those words did Biwako stop in her stride, with her eyes overshadowed by her hair and a dark aura to surround her. Why didn't you think of that sooner? Yelled Biwako to Tsunade, where the brown-haired woman's became bloody red and glowing while her teeth became fangs. Tsunade recoiled a little from the yelling in exasperation. No, it really wasn't her fault that she failed to think of that. Oh come on, we have a long walk. Despite the walk, Tsunode was still excited. Well, except for the labor pains that came with childbirth, she would be able to continue the Senju clan just as her ancestors wanted her to. Even the village had been wanting a Senju heir for some time. The council and the clan heads wanted her to bear strong children so to continue the mighty clan's legacy, although she had been rather stubborn and refused nearly every man that wished to win her affection. It was just after the death of Dan did she refuse. But still, she couldn't kill a baby before it was born. As a medic and a mother, it just wasn't part of her nature. Although still scandalous, she would never get rid of the child, nor would she abandon it. The only way she could abandon her child was if she was forced to protect its life. That was the only reason why. She would go any distance for her child, even if it meant death. That was part of her nature. She was even already making plans to take her child to her clan's house on a beach on the Land of Fire. Her grandfather and father would take her there sometimes when they had the time, before the First Shinobi World War. Before all that death. Even now she still remembered the Great War as if it was yesterday. She would always fear for her father when he would go and fight on the battlefields against the other villages. Both her grandfather and father perished during those times. And the Shodaime Hokage and his son along with the other shinobis who fought and died for their village were given a proper burial, although her grandfather was still able to fell many of their enemy back then with little to no trouble. After her grandfather's death, her granduncle, Tobirama Senju, was installed as the Nidaime Hokage. He was able to thin out a shaky armistice between the villages so they could recover from their losses, but the world was still embroiled in the First World War. Tobirama also developed Konoha's organizational system, and also established Mei organizations within the village such as the Academy, ANBU, the Chunin exams, and the military police force which he handed over to the Uchiha clan. And he died also, and her teacher Hiruzen Sarutobi became the Hokage, and now Minato, the father of her child, was also Hokage. It can be said that her child had Hokage blood flowing through their veins. She was so engrossed with her thoughts that she didn't notice a black-haired woman carrying a bundle walking in front of her. Tsunade barely stopped herself from bumping into her but was able to get her footing at the last minute. She then saw that the woman was Mikoto Uchiha, the wife of Fugaku Uchiha, the head of the Uchiha clan and military police force. "Oh, hello Mikoto," greeted Tsunade politely, and fully seeing the bundle within the black-haired woman's arms, Tsunade could make a small head of black hair and two tiny, pudgy arms. "Good day, Tsuwanda-sama," said respectfully and bowing a little to the Senju clan head. "And to you as well, Biwako-sama." "What brings you out here today?" asked Biwako with a happy smile. "Just running some errands today, and taking this little on here for a tour of the village," said Mikoto, looking down upon the small babe in her arms. Tsunade and Biwako also looked down to see Mikoto's 3-month-old baby open his eyes, revealing kohl orbs, but also a hint of innocence in them. "Oh, did you have a girl?" questioned Tsunade as she poked the baby's cheek and adored the feeling of it. "No, it's a boy, his name is Sasuke," answered Mikoto, still staring down at her youngest son. "Oh, the name of my husband's father," said Biwako, a little surprised at that fact. "Yeah, we gave him that name in hopes that he would become a great ninja like his namesake," replied Mikoto, explaining the origin of the baby's name. "Well, maybe when I have my little girl the two of you can be the best of friends," said Tsunade, smiling gleefully. Knowing her luck, it's a boy already, thought Mikoto and Biwako with a sweat drop. And they also wondered that if Tsunade wanted a girl she should have bet on a boy instead, but it was too late now. "Well, I do hope all goes well with the birth," voiced Mikoto, extending her good wishes onto Tsunade. "Thank you, goodbye cutie," said Tsunade as she rubbed the tuft of black hair Sasuke had. And with that, all three women left to go their own ways. Mikoto went straight for the Uchiha compound while Tsond and Biwako were working their way towards the safe location where the busted blonde could give birth. "By the way, if you have labor pains, keep your voice down and make sure the baby doesn't come out," said Biwako, annoyed at the thought. Okay,"